What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is the second part of a story where Issei was trained by both twin sons of the legendary Dark Knight, Sparda, Dante and Vergil. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Now, let's get into part 2. Third person POV. Issei embarked on the third and final path, the last test he needed to complete before reaching the end. Having successfully overcome the challenges presented by Vergil and Dante, he had proven himself worthy of the Sparda brothers' powers. However, there was still one last task ahead. As Issei set off down the pathway, he sensed a palpable concern emanating from Drake, the dragon who observed his every move. Though unsure of the exact reason for Drake's worry, Issei understood the importance of remaining vigilant. While it was true that Issei had claimed nothing could surprise him anymore, considering the trials he had already endured, such as confronting the specters of his deceased parents and facing the darkness within himself, he had spoken those words not only to reassure Drake, but also to reassure himself. Issei had no knowledge of the challenges that awaited him in this final trial, nor the threats he would have to battle. All he could do was wear a mask to conceal his true emotions beneath the surface. Issei concealed the truth, burying his emotions deep within himself, determined to maintain unwavering focus on the task at hand. The completion of the test loomed before him, an arduous journey that seemed to have stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Issei couldn't help but question whether time operated differently in this realm, compared to the outside world. The passage of time seemed distorted, leaving him with the sensation of having been immersed in this trial for an extended period. Issei let out a small sigh to himself. Issei. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. Issei's eyes moved around the area, nothing so far had happened which was both good and bad. It was good because it gave him a chance to catch his breath and mentally prepare for what he may end up facing, though it was bad, because if he dropped his guard even for a split second, it would be game over for him. Issei needed to be prepared for anything, no matter the cost. Issei looked round to see what this trial was until a great bright red light blinded him. Issei. What the? Issei covered his eyes, shielding them in hopes that the light won't damage his eyes to the point of him going blind. He wasn't sure what was going on, but he had a feeling it had something to do with the trial that he has to do. But what is it? What is the test that Drake having him do? Issei gritted his teeth, continuing to shield his eyes from the bright light as he soon noticed that the light had begun to die down. This caused the boy to slowly lower his hands, only to be greeted by the light of the sun which blinded him for a split second. Issei. Arg. Damn it. Fucking hell. He rubbed his eyes very quickly, his blurry vision slowly coming back to him as he finally took in his surroundings. Issei was no longer on the pathway, which didn't surprise him in the slightest because of what he went through on the previous two trials, but this time it was different. Issei looked around, seeing that he was in some sort of village, but not just any village. He stood in one that looked very old, like several hundred years old and from what he guessed, probably Indian. Issei. I'm in India. Why am I here? Issei crossed his arms in confusion, raising an eyebrow until he heard something which gained his attention. The brown-haired boy turned his head and saw a woman walking down the pathway with a basket of wet clothes in her hands. This caused Issei to blink as he wondered who she was. Issei. Excuse me, who are you? Before Issei could finish his sentence, the woman walked to him and went through Issei, which caused the boy's eyes to widen as he quickly turned around. Issei. What the hell? Issei looked back at the woman and tried to grab her shoulder, only his hand to phase through again. Issei. What is this? Issei looked around. Issei. Is this some kind of an illusion? Was it an illusion? No, an illusion only affects the eyes, so he should have still be able to touch that woman. Also, she would have heard him as well since, even if it's an illusion she would be able to hear him. Issei narrowed his eyes. Issei. This isn't an illusion, it's something else entirely. Just then, his eyes widened as he finally pieced it all together. If it wasn't an illusion, then that means it could have been only one other thing, and that was. Issei. This is a dream. Issei looked around the village. Issei. Man. Everyone. Issei turned his head to see a man wearing some white clothing with some jewels and gold. If Issei had to guess, this man must be the chief of this village or something. The people gathered around the chief wondering what could he want. Chief. Our king wants us to go to his palace for an urgent announcement. Issei raised an eyebrow. A king. Wait, what was even the name of this village, because Issei sort of paid attention in history class, and he can't recall there ever being a king in India. Then again, he probably is mistaken because his grade is enough to explain. Either way, something didn't feel right to Issei. There was something strange about this whole thing, but he couldn't put his finger on it. What could it be? Issei gritted his teeth as he pulled on his hair, not too hard, but not too soft either. Issei. Damn it, if only I paid attention to history. The people muttered amongst each other, asking and thinking what their king would want now. They soon began to head in a direction, towards something as Issei looked, and his jaw nearly dropped at the sight. It was a castle or a palace as one would call it, a very big one at that too. He had seen his fair share of castles in movies, mainly ones based around the Middle Age and such, but he never expected to be standing in front of one, and not a one residing within in a small village. Issei. Holy shit. As Issei stared at the massive structure before him, a part of him wondered why he didn't see it before. Like, it wasn't like it was hard to spot because it was legit sitting right in front of him. Issei. How the hell did I miss this? Issei walked over to the castle following the people of this village. As Issei approached the castle, an overwhelming sense of dread consumed him, intensifying with each step. He couldn't help but feel a growing fear for what awaited him inside. Phasing through the door, Issei realized that physical actions held no significance in this trial, a fact that no longer surprised him. This particular trial focused on testing his mental strength. However, he couldn't help but wonder why Drake would subject him to such an ordeal. Hadn't Dante and Vergil already had him undergo similar challenges? Confusion began to cloud Issei's thoughts, and he couldn't shake the feeling that things would only become more perplexing as the trial progressed. Upon entering the castle, Issei found the interior to be exactly as he had anticipated. A lavish space adorned with golden treasures and precious jewels. However, the prominence of red and green caught his attention. He mentally made note of this observation while continuing to follow the villagers who guided his path. All of the villagers soon bowed as Issei looked ahead of him and saw a young man sitting on a golden throne. Just from that alone, Issei could tell that he was the so-called king of this village. He didn't seem like much of a king, a warrior yes but a king. No, Issei couldn't see that. However, the brown-haired boy soon saw something on his left arm and his eyes widened. Issei. The boosted gear. Issei couldn't believe it, this man had the boosted gear. There is no way that there were 2 Red Dragon Emperor or 2 sacred gears, no it WSS something else. Since this was clearly a memory then that would mean that this king was a previous Red Dragon Emperor, someone who lived hundreds of years ago. Issei. Holy shit. I can't believe it, I'm in the memory of a previous user of the boosted gear. Chief. Your Majesty Amar, what is it that you wish to announce to your loyal subjects? The king known as Amar simply smirked, which didn't feel right with Issei. He could feel an aura of arrogance coming off the dude, and THST caused him to narrow his eyes. Amar. About time you worthless slackers showed up, I was wondering if I needed to remind you lot who your king was. That was all that Issei needed to hear to know that this guy was no king, he was nothing more than scum who was using the power of the boosted gear to get whatever he wanted. Issei wished that he could slap some sense into that bastard, but he had to remember 2 things. First, this was only a trial and nothing more. Second, this happened hundreds of years ago, and Drake told him that he didn't care what his host did, as long as they defeated his arch-rival when he appears. Drake could care less if his host were good nor evil, all that mattered to the dragon was the never-ending fight between him and his rival, who Drake has still not told Issei the name of. Chief. Oh, apologies, my king. Amar. HMPH, no matter. Amar stood up from his bones and stretched as he looked at his subjects that are nothing but peasants to him. Amar. I announce that the title of king is meaningless to me. This shocked the villagers while causing Issei to raise an eyebrow. He could tell that there was another side to this, but what it was, he didn't know. Chief. My king, are you stepping down from the THR? Amar. Of course not, you idiots. This caused everyone minus Issei to flinch. The villagers didn't dare look at their king after his outburst because they feared what he may do. Amar smirked. Amar. I have decided that it is time. He grew an arrogant grin as he stared up at the ceiling. Amar. I shall rise from a king and become a god. Issei. What? Become a god? Chief. My king. How do you plan to do that? Amar simply grinned in response. Amar. By taking down the top god. Shiva, the god of destruction. Issei's eyes widened when he heard this. This idiot wanted to fight Shiva, who is one of the most powerful gods in all of mythology. The brown-haired boy may have not been much of a religious type, but his inner anime boy liked to know who was more powerful. Shiva's strength put him on top of those like Zeus from Greek, Odin from Nordic, Ra from Egyptian, and a whole bunch of other gods too. Since the supernatural world existed, thanks to Drake being from Issei's word, then obviously someone like Shiva the god of destruction was real too. Issei. Does this idiot have a death wish? Chief. My king. That's suicide. No one can beat the god of destruct. He was cut off when Amar placed his sword near between the chief's eyes. Amar. Did I ask for your fucking opinion? He glared down at the chief, who began to sweat tremendously. Amar. Speak out of line like that again, I'll rip your spine from your body and bath in your blood. Issei growled in anger as he glared at the tyrannical king. Issei. If this was real, I would have taught him a lesson. Chief. My apologies, my king. Amar put the sword down. Amar. Now get out of my sight, I must prepare for my greatest battle yet. With that, the villagers bowed and immediately left the castle faster than most people's father when they go and get milk. Issei eyed Amar with hatred in his eyes, but soon enough he saw that everything began to warp around him. Issei. Whoa, what the hell? Issei's gaze darted around in a frantic manner, taking in the disorienting surroundings that seemed to simultaneously change and remain the same. He found himself still within Amar's castle, but it now lay in ruins, engulfed in the chaotic dance of fire and billowing smoke. With determination, Issei forged ahead, braving the searing flames until he emerged outside. What awaited him was a harrowing sight that caused his eyes to widen in dread and horror. The entire village lay in utter devastation, reduced to a mere shell of its former existence. Flames raged uncontrollably, casting an eerie glow, while the skies above were tainted by a thick blanket of smoke. The air resonated with anguished wails, a symphony of terror emitted by the inhabitants, men, women, and children alike who were now victims of this calamity. Every fiber of Issei's being yearned to cry out to Drake, to implore an end to the trial, as the overwhelming despair threatened to consume him. However, he summoned his inner strength, resisting the temptation to succumb to his fear. He knew he had to press on, to overcome this trial and uncover a pathway back to his home. You're the reason why this happened. Issei turned to see Amar badly beaten, and his body was covered in blood head to toe, while he wore red armor that was badly damaged. Pathetic. Just then a man with 4 arms stopped on Amar's chest. Amar. Ai. Issei saw the man had purple skin, 5's eyes with one closed, had a headband around his head and blue tattoos on his forearms. He realized it was Shiva, the god of destruction and leader of the Indian pantheon. Issei silently gulped to himself, that was him. The one that Amar wanted to defeat, the god of destruction, Shiva. Issei. Geez, he looks intimidating. Amar coughed up some blood as he glared at the god. Amar. How? How did you beat me? No one should have been able to. Shiva. Simple, your arrogance and tyrannical persona. You think just because you were treated as a king the day you were born and had the power of a king and a weapon that killed gods doesn't mean you're all powerful. If you had awakened the Juggernaut drive or the boosted gear's true power and potential, you would have given me a challenge, but you would still lose. Amar gritted his teeth. Amar. Damn you, Shiva. I am meant to be God. Not you. Me. Shiva sighed and shook his head. Shiva. You sound like a rotten spoiled crybaby that doesn't get anything he wants. What were these fools thinking? Immediately overthrowing their old king and giving you the throne when you were just an infant was a mistake. Well, no matter. Have fun rotting in the boosted gear with the other fallen red dragon emperors before you. Amar. What? Shiva raised a foot and with a quick motion, he crushed Amar's head beneath it, which caused blood to splat everywhere. Issei watched in silence, his hair covering his eyes as his surroundings began to chance once again. This time, the brown-haired boy found himself in a familiar location where he felt someone standing behind him. So, partner. Do you understand what Issei was trying to teach you? Issei slowly turned and looked up at Drake, the Welsh dragon staring down the boy as he waited for his partner's response. Issei. Power and arrogance. Only leads to your demise. Drake shook his head. Drake. No, that is what Dante showed you. What I am referring to is something else entirely. What did Amar do? Issei. He tried to fight Shai. Issei paused as he fell silent, slowly the pieces began to fit into places. Amar wanted to fight Shiva because he had the boosted gear, but if he didn't fight him and grew in power then he would have drawn the attention of the god of destruction anyways. He would have had to face him anyway. He would have lost. Issei finally gets it, that whole memory wasn't supposed to teach him the value of not letting power corrupt you or some shit, because Dante had already showed him that. The memory was supposed to ask Issei if he was ready, if he was prepared to face beings like Shiva or other godly individuals. If he was prepared to take on the mantle of the Red Dragon Emperor, ready to bear any burden that comes his way. Issei. You're asking me if I'm ready to carry the mantle. A small smile grew on Drake's face as he nodded his head. Drake, yes partner. Are you ready to bear the burden of the Red Dragon Emperor? Are you prepared to face down beings such as Shiva or worse? Are you ready to put everything you have on the line? Issei fell silent once again. Was he really ready to put everything he had and everyone he knows on the line? No. Yes. No. Yes. He wasn't entirely sure, but that is how fate or destiny works. You never know what it shall do to you, all you can do though is just head straight into it with your head held up high. Issei. I have no idea. Bragg merely sighed as he foresaw this. Bragg. Well. I foresaw this Issei. But that's the thing. Dreg. Issei looked up at Dreg, a smirk slapped across his face. Issei. What's the point of life if you don't live it to the fullest, even if that means fighting bloody gods? Dreg stared at the brown-haired boy as he let out a chuckle of amusement. Dreg. You are correct, partner. Congrats. Dreg smiled. Dreg. You passed the test. Third person Pav. August 6, 12 a.m. It was yet another calm and peaceful night in the city of Redgrave. The moon had risen high into the sky, casting its gentle glow and illuminating the darkness. A cold breeze wafted through the streets, creating a serene atmosphere. The city's inhabitants were nestled in their cozy beds, fast asleep, their minds immersed in the realm of dreams and imagination. Meanwhile, inside a bustling club, a lively and vibrant party was in full swing. The air was filled with loud, head-banging music that reverberated through the venue. People could be seen dancing, engaging in conversations, and indulging in drinks. Among the crowd, several girls wearing revealing attire captivated the audience with their seductive pole dances. At a bustling bar table, a young man with brown hair was thoroughly enjoying the festivities. Despite the deafening music assaulting his ears, he managed to overlook it for the time being. This boy's name was none other than Issei, and he had been through a long and very painful day. Having proved himself worthy of wielding the powers of both Dante and Vergil, Issei had expected to return to his own universe. However, much to his annoyance, he found himself still trapped in the Sparda brothers' world. 2 whole months had passed since that fateful day, and Issei was seemingly stuck in this unfamiliar world. Though it wasn't entirely a negative experience, as he had Dante, Vergil, Trish, Lady, Miko, as well as Deadweight and his obvious girlfriend taking care of him. Yet, at the same time, Issei couldn't shake off the feeling of being different. He couldn't pinpoint the exact reason why. Perhaps it was the amalgamation of Dante and Vergil's powers within him. The fusion of their essences seemed to have altered his very being. To Issei, it felt like countless years had slipped by in the blink of an eye, eroding his memories of the world he once knew and the familiar faces he encountered every day. His mother. His father. Vitsuda. Motohama. Hell, he could barely remember Sona's face, and their relationship was strained at best. However, there wasn't much he could do about it in the present moment. The best course of action for Issei was to relax and await news from Vergil regarding the discovery of his own world. Speaking of which, both Vergil and Dante had yet to hand over their weapons to Issei. He couldn't help but desire Dante's iconic guns, they looked incredibly cool and boasted unlimited ammunition. However, that was a complaint he would save for another time. For now, Issei decided to kick back and immerse himself in the enjoyment of the party. As Issei reveled in the festivities, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. Everything around him turned a haunting shade of red, and the faces of those around him transformed into grotesque and horrifying visages. Despite this eerie sight, Issei chose not to intervene, knowing that it was all a figment of his imagination. He reassured himself that he was safe. Yet, the illusions didn't end there. Issei also caught glimpses of demonic-looking creatures lurking amidst the crowd. Reacting quickly, he grabbed a bottle of whiskey, consumed its contents in one swift motion, and hurled it at one of the demonic beings. To his dismay, the bottle had no effect, prompting a sigh of frustration to escape his lips. Undeterred, Issei resumed his enjoyment of the party, finding a seat from which he could admire the captivating pole dance performed by the girls. However, his attention was diverted when he caught sight of words mysteriously appearing on the walls. "Watch him." The boy disregarded the mysterious words, his focus now fixated on the 2 girls before him. They were both dressed in alluring angel costumes. The first girl boasted fiery red hair and captivating green eyes, while the second girl sported blonde hair, along with fake cat ears and a tail. As the music continued to pulse through the club, the boy's gaze was locked on the mesmerizing sight of the 2 girls engaging in a seductive dance together. A mischievous smirk played upon his lips as he made up his mind to leave the venue and take them back to his place for some intimate enjoyment. Outside the club, a taxi idled by the curb. Issei, accompanied by the 2 girls he had been watching, stepped into the vehicle. The brown-haired boy's smirk intensified as the 2 girls positioned themselves suggestively near his lap, hinting at the pleasurable encounters that awaited them. "Follow him." Issei, once more dismissing the enigmatic words on the walls, arrived at his destination as the taxi came to a halt. Leading the 2 girls, he guided them to a nearby pier where a magnificent Ferris wheel stood tall against the night sky. With their excitement building, they embarked on the Ferris wheel, their laughter mingling with the gentle breeze. As the Ferris wheel ascended, Issei's companions continued to provide him with delightful company, ensuring that he thoroughly enjoyed the experience. In the midst of their shared moments of pleasure and intimacy, one of the girls playfully removed Issei's jacket and mischievously tossed it off the Ferris wheel. Issei couldn't help but let out a surprised chuckle, realizing that he would need to retrieve his jacket later. Nevertheless, the act only added a touch of excitement to their escapade high above as they reveled in the thrill of the moment. Hunt him. Despite growing annoyance at the persistent appearance of the words, the boy chose to ignore them, focusing instead on the immediate pleasure ahead. Leading the two girls, he led them to his trailer, a place where they could indulge in their desires without restraint. As they entered the intimate space, their playful escapades intensified, igniting a passionate flame that engulfed them all. The trailer seemed to come alive with their shared ecstasy, causing it to rock and shake throughout the night. The rhythmic movements mirrored the intensity of their passion, creating an ambience of unadulterated pleasure and satisfaction. Time skip brought to you by Dante vs Michael Jackson. August 7, 6:45 a.m. The sun rose into the sky, heralding another beautiful day. The melodious songs of birds filled the air, accompanying the vibrant blooming of flowers. Meanwhile, inside the cozy trailer, Issei was peacefully slumbering in his bed. However, this tranquil scene was abruptly disrupted as an alarm clock began to blare, causing Issei to stir from his sleep. His right arm instinctively reached out and retrieved the alarm clock from the bedside table. In a fit of annoyance, Issei flung the raucous device out of the window. Unfortunately, his aim was off, and the alarm clock inadvertently struck an unsuspecting passerby on the head. The impact sent the individual tumbling off the edge of the pier. Miraculously, they narrowly avoided landing on any jagged rocks below, ensuring their survival. Nevertheless, the bewildered victim was undoubtedly left in a state of confusion, trying to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. Issei. Even in a different universe, alarm clocks are still annoying. I miss mine. The boy groaned as he slowly began to sit up in bed, his ears catching the sound of his television blaring news updates. However, he couldn't bring himself to care about the news, as his back was throbbing with intense pain. With a wince, he shifted his gaze towards his back, only to discover that it was marred with a series of deep scratch marks. Issei. Jesus. The hell happened last night? All that he can remember is going to a party at a nearby club, and then nothing. He's filled with uncertainty, wondering if he did something cool or completely stupid. He desperately hopes it's not the latter because Trish and Lady would surely be furious with him if he did. They've been treating him like their younger sibling or son, which is usually fine by Issei, since both Trish and Lady have attractive physiques. But lately, he's been feeling different and he can't quite pinpoint why. Maybe it's because he's been hanging out with Kiri, Deadweight's obvious girlfriend. Perhaps her religious beliefs are influencing him, and it's clear that Deadweight genuinely cares for her. Issei finds it ironic that these thoughts are coming from a typically perverted boy who used to dream of creating a harem with women boasting ample bosoms. Issei, however, is no fool. He can discern when someone has genuine feelings for another person. It's saying something, considering the only boy the girls from Kuoh Academy seem to be interested in is Hyoudou, aka the prince. Rubbing the back of his neck, Issei checks for any signs of cramps, while the scratch marks on his back gradually fade away. Although Dante and Vergil haven't bestowed their weapons upon him, he has acquired some impressive powers, in addition to those derived from a certain Welsh dragon slumbering within his arm. Speaking of which, Issei directs his attention to his hand, focusing his energy until a green gem materializes at the back of his palm. Issei. Rise and shine, Dreg. The gem glowed with a breathtaking green hue, signaling that Dreg heard his partner's voice. Dreg. Partner, please stop going to those parties. It's not easy to burn the alcohol from your system. Issei blinked in surprise, he was drunk last night. That's strange because last time he checked he wasn't old enough to drink yet. But who was gonna stop him? He wasn't in his world, and Dante and the others are normally on missions dealing with demons. Issei. I was drinking. I don't remember doing that. Dreg. You did a lot more than that, look at your arm. Issei. Yeah, I know you're in my arm. We kinds established this like 2 months ago. Dreg let out a small yet loud sigh of annoyance. Dreg. Your other arm, partner. Raising his eyebrow in confusion, Issei turned his attention to his other arm, and like Dreg told the boy there was some writing on it. He decided to read it and saw that it said, "Had fun last night, call us anytime big boy." That confused Issei, the hell was that all about? It sounded like he had girls inside his trailer or something, but that shouldn't be possible. For starters, he still had that date with Yuma back in his world, and second, girls hate Issei with a burning passion. So unless Issei was super drunk, this message should be a prank or something. Issei. Dreg. What's wit? Dreg. Before you continue, yes it was real. You basically as you humans say it lost your virginity last night. Issei blinked as silence filled the air, he did it again, then a third time, then a fourth, and finally a fifth time. Before. Issei. What? Dreg. Ow. That hurt my ears and I don't have a physical body. Issei. Sorry, it's just. I truly lost my virginity and I can't remember a thing. Breg chuckled. Breg. Not to worry, I took some pictures of what they looked like. Issei. Okay, first that's weird. Second, you're the best Dreg, and third, how did you even take pictures? Breg. Same way I got the pool table. Issei raised an eyebrow. Pool table? What was Dreg talking about? Issei. What pool tab? Issei blinked from the noise inside his head. He couldn't actually believe it. Dreg had a whole pool table inside the brown-haired boy's mind. Many thoughts and questions began to flow into the boy's brain, and the specific one was, how was the Welsh dragon able to do such a thing? Breg. You were saying? Issei. How? Breg. I'm friends with a certain rabbit with the power to warp reality. Rabbit? Warping reality? Now, Issei feels like he has heard it all. First, he was unexpectedly transported to an alternate world, reminiscent of those captivating isekai manga and anime. Second, to his astonishment, he discovers that both in this new world and his previous one, supernatural beings such as devils, demons, angels, fallen angels, and even formidable dragons exist. The revelation of this extraordinary existence leaves him bewildered. Third, Issei undergoes rigorous training under the guidance of the sons of the second most powerful demons in the entire world, or possibly even the universe. Lastly, though uncertain about the specifics, Issei senses that there lies another remarkable chapter yet to unfold in his eventful journey. Undeniably, he has encountered a myriad of extraordinary experiences, shaping him into the person he is today. Issei shook his head, placing a hand on his temple, feeling a mixture of disbelief and amusement. He believed he had already experienced everything that could possibly surprise him, but fate had other plans. Suddenly, a peculiar sound emanated from the floor, capturing his attention. Curiosity piqued, Issei cast his gaze downward, stepping out of his bed and proceeding towards the mysterious source. He carefully rearranged a few objects, creating a path that led him to his ringing phone. To his astonishment, the caller ID displayed the name Dante, a name that caught him off guard. Issei hesitated for a moment, contemplating the significance of this unexpected call from Dante, an individual he least expected to reach out to him. Issei. Dante. What does he want? Breg. Not sure, partner. Issei answered the phone and placed it up to his ear. Issei. Yellow. Dante. Phone. Hey kid. How are ya? Issei. I'm doing good, just got a little bit of a headache. Dante. Phone. Well, that suck, you know what can cure that? Issei's face adopted a deadpan expression, already anticipating what Dante was about to say. The white-haired man had a predictable pattern whenever something went awry. Either he would grab a slice of pizza or indulge in a strawberry sundae. Issei couldn't help but find it surprising that Dante managed to stay in shape and still have intact teeth, considering the copious amounts of pizza and sundaes he consumed. This stark contrast in eating habits was precisely why Issei preferred Vergil's cooking. Whenever Dante attempted to make a pizza, his culinary method consisted of simply slapping a pre-made pizza onto a plate. Issei found it both amusing and exasperating, realizing that Dante's cooking skills were far from refined. Issei. Dante, I'm gonna stop you right there because I know where you're going with this. What do you want? Dante. Phone. Well, you're gonna want to sit down for this. Issei sighed. Issei. Just tell me already. Dante. Phone. Well, today is the day. Issei. What are yo? Dante. Phone. Kid, you're going home. Issei fell into a stunned silence, his eyes widening in disbelief as his phone slipped through his fingers, plummeting to the ground below. The weight of the realization hit him like a tidal wave. Could it be true? Was this happening? Was he finally going to go home? A surge of emotion swirled within him: hope, anticipation, and a hint of apprehension. The prospect of returning to his own world, reuniting with loved ones, and leaving behind the unpredictable and fantastical realm he had become entwined in was almost too surreal to comprehend. Issei's heart raced as he grappled with the possibility that this might not be an illusion or a fleeting dream, but an actual chance to reclaim the life he had left behind. Issei. Where are you? Dante chuckled softly on the other end of the phone, a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. Standing beside him was Vergil, who leaned casually against the wall, engrossed in a book. He listened intently to the conversation unfolding between his younger brother and Issei, sharing a knowing glance at one another as they absorbed the excitement and pure joy emanating from Issei through the device. Dante's amusement at the situation was evident, and he couldn't help but revel in the anticipation building within Issei. He understood the significance of this moment, the profound impact it would have on Issei's life. Vergil, ever the observant one, absorbed the scene with a serene yet intrigued expression, appreciating the genuine happiness radiating from Issei's voice. Together, the brothers exchanged silent communication, silently acknowledging the profound impact they had on Issei's journey and the incredible transformation he had undergone since they first crossed paths. Dante. We're at the shop, meet us here. Issei. Phone. on my way now. Dante smiled, though this one was a little different than his previous one. He was happy for the boy, but also a little upset as well. Dante. Yeah, see you soon. Third person Pav. August 7th, 7:11 a.m. Issei couldn't believe it. He honestly couldn't believe it whatsoever. He thought that this day would never come. The day he had been eagerly waiting for, the words to hear entering his ear and filling him with a sense of joy. He was going home. After a total of 2 months in this new universe, he was finally able to return back to where he truly belonged, the place where he had dreamt of returning to for so long. He craved the embrace of his parents, the warmth of his nice cozy bed, the time with his 2 best friends, and so much more. Issei wouldn't lie, staying in this universe was definitely fun, to say the least, but it wasn't his home. It didn't have the most important things that he required. It made the brown-haired boy feel like he was all alone, like it was just him against the whole entire world. Sure, he made some good friends here like Dante, Lady, Trish, Nico, Kiri, Deadweight, and even Vergil of all people, but they weren't like his old friends. He and those 2 had been friends ever since he attended Kuoh Academy, the only ones who would hang out with him since Issei was never really good at making them. He did have a childhood best friend, he can't remember their name, but he does know that he and they used to be inseparable. They did everything together. Go to the beach, play at the arcade, have sleepovers, and a ton of other stuff. However, that all changed when they had to move away because their dad got offered a job and they couldn't stay in Kuoh. Even to this day, Issei still wonders what his life would have been if his childhood best friend had stayed in Kuoh with him. Would he be the same as he is now? Would he still be in this situation? If yes, then what and how would things be different? Currently, Issei was running through the streets of Red Grave as he passed numerous people, pulling off some impressive maneuvers to get around them. He could feel his heart beating very quickly, almost like it was trying to force itself out of his chest, as he could feel his blood boiling, but not out of anger. Out of excitement. No words could explain the amount of excitement that he was feeling at the current moment. He wanted to get to the Devil May Cry shop as quickly as possible. This was his one and only chance to return to his home, and he wasn't gonna let it slip through his hands. Nothing would stand in his way of returning home. Dreg. Partner, slow down. Issei. No can do, Dreg. I gotta get there. It's finally time. Dreg. I know partner, but didn't you he? Issei. Jesus, why are there so many streets? Why did the Yamato in the damn trial had to be only part of my imagination? Dreg let out a small sigh at his partner ignoring him. He understood the position that the boy was in, but it was very clear that this was getting to him. He wasn't thinking clearly because he toned out the ending of Dante's words. Dreg on the other hand didn't and knew that it wasn't gonna be a happy moment. His tone, Dante's tone gave it all away to Dreg. The Welsh dragon guesses that he's upset that he won't be able to see Issei again or opening the portal will come at a cost and a huge one at that. But Dreg wasn't gonna bother with trying to explain it to Issei because the boy won't listen. He's too focused with going back that he isn't seeing the bigger picture right in front of him. So the dragon shall simply watch the events play out before him. That's all he could do anyway, since he was trapped within the sacred gear which contained his soul. It sucked because Dreg was once one of the most feared and respected dragons to have ever existed. His power knew almost no bounds as he was strong enough to go toe-to-toe with deities and even defeat or kill them if he wanted to. Sure, there were other dragons, but they weren't at his level of power such as the Dragon Kings. They were strong, but still far below Dreg and his rival. Then there were evil dragons, but they were a special case, and not the good kind at that, as in the name they are pure evil, and have absolutely no regards to anyone's safety which includes their own. But still even the strongest among them weren't able to do significant harm to Dreg, but he has tangled with one or maybe a few in the past. Within his domain, or rather his prison, Dreg rested his head on the ground, feeling a sense of boredom permeate the air around the dragon. There was nothing particularly remarkable about his current location, it was just a typical volcanic region where dragons like him would usually reside. The atmosphere was filled with searing heat, billowing steam, and thick black smoke that obscured any trace of light from above, not that there was much to begin with. Dreg could still vividly recall the moment he was cast into this prison, the excruciating pain he had to endure as his soul was forcefully torn from his body. It was a torturous experience, akin to being skinned alive repeatedly, as if his bones were shattering into dust and his blood were simultaneously boiling and freezing. The intensity of the pain was so overwhelming that Dreg often found it nearly impossible to stifle his cries. It was unlike anything he had ever endured throughout his entire existence, and he would never forget the one responsible for his torment, the being who had trapped him inside the sacred gear that now contained him. God. God, the leader of heaven, the entity credited with creating everything and everyone in the universe. That wretched being had held the top spot on Dreg's list of most despised individuals for centuries, although their history extended far beyond what one could fathom. However, that is a story for another time and for a different place. Braig let out a sigh of annoyance. Braig. He's such an idiot. Wow, hearing you call someone else an idiot is something special. Braig silently growled to himself as his gaze shifted towards the source of the voice, guiding his eyes to a floating orb of pink energy, hovering approximately 15 feet away from his massive form. The Welsh dragon observed with intrigue as the orb emitted a gentle glow and underwent a remarkable transformation, morphing into an entirely different entity. It now presented itself as a stunning woman, adorned with long, wavy blonde hair cascading down her shoulders and captivating light green eyes. She was dressed in an elegant light purple gown, featuring a gracefully low neckline, and adorned with a tiara-like ornamentation in shades of purple and silver. Braig. You. Braig cast his gaze upon the woman, feeling a mix of frustration and disdain. Why did it have to be her? Elsha, one of his former hosts, was renowned during her time as the strongest female Red Dragon Emperor. On the surface, one might assume that Braig would be pleased to see her, considering their past collaboration. However, that assumption would be completely wrong. In truth, Braig harbored a deep-seated animosity towards Elsha and the previous wielders of the sacred gear. The reasons for his intense hatred remained a mystery to the world at large. Nevertheless, the mere sight of her stirred within Braig an overwhelming desire to shatter the confines of his prison and utterly obliterate her very soul. Braig. Why are you here? Elsha. I heard there was another user of the sacred gear, so I came to meet the kid. Unfortunately, you're here. Braig growled at the woman as he rose up from the ground, causing the very earth beneath their feet to shake and rumble. Braig. Leave before I extinguish your soul for good. Elsha didn't flinch. She wasn't afraid of Braig because she knew that he couldn't do anything to her nor the other past users of the boosted gear. Elsha. Yeah. Keep saying that, it won't matter. Braig only growled once again, his eyes glowing green as he dug his claws into the ground and causing molten lava to erupt from the cracks. Elsha only smirked this, crossing her arms as she looked up at the Welsh dragon with a smug expression on her face. Elsha. Give up, your motivate will fail like it did the previous 600 times. Braig only growled at this. Braig. You won't stop me, I will do what I set out to do when I met Albion all those years ago. Crush him for good. Elsha. Oh yeah? What makes you think you'll succeed? Braig fell silent at first, causing Elsha to smirk, but her satisfaction quickly waned when she heard Braig emit a faint yet resonant chuckle that sent an unsettling shiver down the woman's spine. The atmosphere grew tense as he towered menacingly over her, his figure cloaked in an impenetrable veil of darkness, leaving only his vivid, luminescent green eyes and sinister grin visible to her trembling gaze. Braig. Because I am. Meanwhile with Issei. August 7th, 8 a.m. After an exhaustive run, Issei finally arrived at Dante's shop, known as Devil May Cry. Without wasting a moment, the determined boy swiftly leaped through the front door, executing a nimble roll mid-air before landing gracefully on his feet. Pausing momentarily, Issei blinked several times, attempting to process the audacious act he had just performed. He had impulsively burst through the front entrance, executing an acrobatic roll, despite not intending to do so. It was an unintentional display of athleticism, leaving him perplexed and questioning his own actions. Regret quickly washed over him, realizing how cringeworthy and lacking in originality his impromptu entrance had been. He vowed never to repeat such a display, recognizing the absence of any genuine uniqueness in the entire sequence. It seemed as if someone had attempted to prolong the moment unnecessarily, a futile endeavor to artificially extend the scene's duration. Shrugging his shoulders nonchalantly, Issei began brushing off the dust that had accumulated on his attire, inadvertently dismissing the significance of his recent actions, almost as if they had slipped from his memory within a matter of seconds. Issei. I've finally arrived. Issei. Issei's attention perked up as he discerned the distinct sound of approaching footsteps. Initially, he anticipated the familiar presence of Trish and Lady, but to his surprise, his gaze fell upon the unexpected sight of other well-known faces. The first individual to catch Issei's eye was a stunning young woman with lustrous auburn hair, elegantly swept back and secured with a beret adorned in gold and white. Her bangs were stylishly short and parted, with the majority gracefully draping over her right eye, while a few strands cascaded over her left. Framing her face were longer wisps of hair originating from her bangs. Her enchanting hazel eyes exhibited a rich brown hue at their core, gradually transitioning into a mesmerizing moss green along the outer rim of her irises. Next stood another young woman, her shoulder-length hair flowing in wavy black strands, effortlessly restrained by a braided hairband. Adorned with red-framed glasses, she sported several tattoos on her body. Her attire comprised a white tank top, teasing a glimpse of her midriff, concealed under a dark yellow sleeveless jacket reminiscent of welding cape sleeves. Complementing her outfit were blue denim shorts, a brown worker belt snugly securing a pair of sturdy red heatproof gloves on one side, while a tool belt with multiple pockets hung from the opposite side, braced by a thigh strap. Completing her ensemble were brown leather cowgirl boots adorned with embossed patterns, accentuated by tongue straps embellished with pistol cartridges. The final figure in the trio was a strikingly handsome young man, his intense blue eyes piercing through the surroundings. His hair, styled in a daring faux hawk fashion, boasted a striking shade of white. He exuded an aura of casual punkishness, dressed in a dark blue hooded jacket, a tattered dark crimson shirt, and a small necklace featuring two intricately crafted feathered wings, encircling a crimson gemstone. His attire was completed by black pants and military-style combat boots. An intriguing addition to his appearance was a mechanical hand, reminiscent of something out of a science fiction movie. The unexpected presence of this trio Kiri, Nico, and Deadweight took Issei aback. He hadn't anticipated encountering them at Dante's shop. He pondered whether Dante and Vergil had summoned them or if they had simply dropped by for a visit. Either scenario was a plausible explanation for their unexpected appearance. Issei. No way, Kiri, Nico, Deadweight. What are you three doing here? The boy who Issei calls Deadweight grew an annoyed expression. Nero. My name is Nero, not Deadweight. Issei. Nero. Who's that? They sound badass, unlike you Deadweight. Nero. Why you? Kiri giggled while Nico laughed in amusement at Issei's little tease. Nico. How's it been, Issei? You been staying out of trouble? Issei. Trouble? What's trouble? Nico snickered as she playfully punched the brown-haired boy's shoulder, making him chuckle as he rubbed the spot she punched while smiling at her. Issei. I didn't expect to see you three here, what being's you over? Nero. We're just arrived, how about you? Issei. Same, but I won't be staying for long. This gained the trio's attention, but before they could ask the boy what he meant by that they heard a door open and turned to see Dante, Vergil, Trish, and Katie walk into the room. Dante. Wow, you sure got here fast. Issei. Of course, my heart is racing like crazy. After so long, I'm finally going home. This shocked Nico, Kiri and Nero. Nico. What, you're leaving? Issei. Yeah, Vergil has found my home. Right, Vergil. He looked over at the eldest Sparda brother, but Vergil was looking away with his arms crossed. This confused Issei. Sure, Vergil was known for being cold, but there was something different about him this time. Issei couldn't quite put his finger on it, but he had a strong feeling that he saw a hint of sadness in Vergil's eyes. Issei. Vergil. Silence. Issei began to get worried, very worried now because there was something that the two brothers weren't telling him. The joy and happiness slowly began to dwindle down as concern and worry took over Issei's face. His gaze slowly moved over to Dante, who scratched the back of his neck. Issei. Dante. Dante. Kid, there's something you should know. Issei. What is it? Dante looked over at Vergil, who gave his brother a look. It said that he didn't care, but in reality he actually did care. Issei must be rubbing off on him because Vergil has never cared about anything except power, yet being with the brown-haired boy has changed him. Dante. Kid. The thing is, we can send you home, but the catch is Vergil. That doing so will mean that Dante and I shall die. Silence, complete and utter silence, filled the room as Vergil had just dropped the biggest bombshell that anyone would ever hear. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air. Sending Issei home meant certain death for the Sparda brothers, the two most infamous figures in both their world and the underworld. Trish and Lady remained silent, their reactions less shocked compared to the others. It was evident that they had been informed of the plan beforehand. Nico, on the other hand, was stunned into silence, unable to utter a single word. Kiri couldn't hide her shock, her hand covering her mouth in disbelief. Nero, however, was a mix of shock and anger. He couldn't accept the fact that both his uncle and father were simply going to sacrifice themselves, especially after he had made it clear that neither of them should die. Nero had put in tremendous effort to reconcile with his father, to put an end to their bitter sibling rivalry, and to work together to defeat the demon tree that threatened their world. Now, it seemed that fate had other plans, rendering all of Nero's hard work meaningless. Yet, none of the reactions from the others could compare to the overwhelming emotions that Issei was experiencing. The brown-haired boy stood in silence, unmoved by anything happening around him. His pupils had shrunk, his eyes widened by the sheer impact of the bombshell. He remained motionless, not even blinking. It had reached a point where Nico questioned whether Issei was still breathing. Fortunately, Issei was still breathing, which was a relief to everyone in the room. Dante, observing his brother's expression with a mix of annoyance and concern, scratched the back of his head and let out a small chuckle, unable to fully grasp the gravity of the situation. Dante. Yeah, that shall happen. But it's Auri. Issei. Forget it. Dante. Huh? Issei had snapped out of his shock and grew a serious expression. Issei. If I'm not going home, I don't care. I won't let you and Vergil give up your lives. Everyone was shocked by this sudden change in attitude. 1 minute Issei was ready to go home, and now he simply doesn't care about it anymore. Ever since both Dante and Vergil met the boy, all he has ever spoke about was going back to his world, and now he has the opportunity to do so, and he's not taking it. Dante. But kid, this is your chance to go home. Issei. I don't care. Issei's hair covered his eyes as he clenched his hand into a fist. Slowly, tears began to stream down his face, visible to everyone around him. No one dared to speak, observing as Issei looked up at both Vergil and Dante, his tears flowing like little rivers. Issei himself didn't want to cry, he was making every effort to control his tears, but he couldn't seem to do so. What was happening to him? Why couldn't he seize this opportunity? After all, this wasn't his home, he needed to return. His parents and friends were anxiously awaiting his return, and though he was unsure of the time difference, they were likely worried sick about his whereabouts. Yet, here he stood, presented with the perfect chance, and he found himself declining it. Issei. Back there, I was a nobody. I was nothing but a joke. I became a pervert not because I wanted to. Issei fell down as he began to full-on sulk, having a breakdown in front of everyone, as they could see the sadness within the boy's eyes. There was more to him that they knew, secrets that he had kept hidden from everyone. Issei. I became a pervert because I wanted to fit in. But I've only made myself a fucking joke. Issei continued to cry as he gritted his teeth. Slowly he started to punch the ground. Issei. A part of me was glad I got sent here because no one knows me. Punch. Issei. They don't know what I used to be. Punch. Punch. Issei. Weak. Punch. 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 Issei. Worthless. Punch. 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 Issei. A fucking joke. Punch. 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 Issei. I'm nothing but a joke. Punch. Issei had punched the wooden floor with such force that he actually broke through it and the concrete below, but this action didn't come without consequences. His hand now bled with splinters and broken fingers. Kiri, Trish, Nico, and Lady became deeply concerned for Issei's well-being. However, Kiri's worry was surpassed by the other three. Theirs were on a whole other level. Dante and Vergil exchanged a silent glance, communicating their thoughts. They approached the brown-haired boy, who seemed indifferent to his injured hand. The two brothers lowered themselves to Issei's eye level and unexpectedly embraced him, leaving him shocked by their gesture. Dante. Heh, you're not a joke, kid. You're one crazy son of a bitch. Vergil. If you were, then I wouldn't have given you my power. Issei remained silent, refraining from uttering a single word. Instead, he embraced the two brothers, holding them tightly in his arms. This heartfelt moment stirred a range of emotions among the girls present, evoking a sense of tenderness and poignancy. However, it seemed to have little effect on Nero, who maintained a stoic expression, seemingly unaffected by such displays of affection. Ironically, despite his apparent indifference, Nero had shed tears on a few occasions before, making his aloofness somewhat paradoxical. The trio continued to embrace one another, their connection unbroken, until both Dante and Vergil mutually decided that it was time to part ways. Slowly, they released themselves from Issei's embrace, their departure leaving a lasting imprint upon his face. Tears had cascaded down his cheeks, causing his visage to be stained a deep shade of crimson. The intensity of their reunion had moved Issei deeply, and the evidence of his emotional release was now visible for all to see. Dante. It's time, kid. Vergil. Time for you to leave. Issei. But I don't want to lose you both. Dante smirked and ruffled the boy's hair. Dante. Think of it as a goodbye for now, we'll see each other again. He looked at Vergil. Dante. Right, bro. Vergil merely sighed and rolled his eyes, much to his younger sibling's amusement. Vergil. Whatever, Dante. Dante chuckled as he looked at Issei with a smile. The latter couldn't help but smile. Third-person POV. Disoriented. Disoriented is the most accurate way Issei Hyoudou could describe his current situation. Although he experienced a range of emotions, disorientation was the prevailing one at the moment. The young boy found himself hurtling through a vortex compassed of vibrant colors. Red, blue, yellow, brown, purple, and various others. Electricity crackled around him, occasionally causing a startle or two when he least expected it, but fortunately not directly striking him. As mentioned earlier, Issei was overwhelmed by a multitude of emotions. One of these emotions was sadness. It had been nearly half an hour since Dante and Vergil sacrificed themselves to send Issei back to his home universe. Logically, he should be happy and relieved to finally return home, but he wasn't. Issei didn't want things to turn out this way. Well, he did want to go home, but not like this. Losing Dante and Vergil was something he never anticipated. Despite only spending 2 months with them, Issei felt a deep bond of friendship, or perhaps something even more profound. It wasn't a romantic connection, that would be strange and inappropriate considering their significant age difference. Besides, Issei aspired to be the Harem King with numerous female companions, so he couldn't be gay. Setting aside those thoughts, the bond Issei shared with Dante and Vergil could be likened to that of a family. The two brothers had genuinely grown on him, despite their flaws constantly surfacing, such as their incessant disagreements and their desire to engage in combat every single day. Despite these imperfections, they felt like family to Issei. He couldn't quite pinpoint the exact roles they played, but if he had to assign them, Vergil would be the serious yet caring father figure, while Dante would assume the role of the comedic uncle who always aimed to bring joy to everyone's lives. Issei secretly enjoyed Dante's jokes, although he would never admit it. Unfortunately, he could never express this to Dante, given the current circumstances. Both Vergil and Dante were gone now, and no matter how much Issei tried to deny it, they were never coming back. This realization filled Issei with profound sadness. They were like family to him, and without them, he would have continued to be a directionless teenage boy with no purpose. Dante and Vergil gave him purpose and a reason to keep moving forward, and a little pep talk that Nero gave him would forever resonate within him. Flashback. After his emotional breakdown, followed by the two brothers providing comfort and calming him down, Issei found himself standing outside the Devil May Cry shop alongside a group of individuals. Trish, Lady, Nico, Kiri, Nero, and the Sparda brothers, Dante and Vergil, were all present. The atmosphere was heavy with silence as the Sparda brothers stood before Issei. Vergil gripped his iconic weapon, the Yamato, in his hands, its blade unsheathed from its scabbard. Dante glanced at Issei, recognizing that despite his efforts to console him during his breakdown, the young man still seemed mentally disturbed. Dante empathized with him, understanding the turmoil of not being in the right state of mind. However, it was crucial for Issei to regain his composure if he ever wished to return home and reunite with his parents. Thoughts of his own mother flooded Dante's mind. He knew firsthand what it felt like to be unable to see a mother figure. He had witnessed his own mother's tragic demise right before his eyes. The memory of that day remained etched in his soul the day his mother, abandoning him in a closet, had rushed back to save his elder brother, only to fall victim to the demons. Unlike Vergil, Dante had always retained his humanity, a trait he shared with his mother. After that fateful event, Vergil had descended into darkness, embracing his demonic heritage, mirroring their father. Dante wondered if he would have followed the same path as Vergil had their roles been reversed. Perhaps he would have, but deep down, Dante knew he owed much of who he was to his mother. It was her influence that shaped him into the person he had become today, a relentless demon hunter, driven by a desire to spare others from the anguish he had endured. On that life-altering day, Dante embraced his destiny as a legendary devil hunter. Over time, he had earned the moniker of the Blackened Angel, a title that had become synonymous with his name. Dante, hey Issei. Issei. Dante sighed as he walked up and placed a hand on the brown-haired boy's shoulder, making him look up at the hybrid. Dante. Look, I know you don't want this. But Vergil and I wouldn't be doing this unless there was no other way. Issei. Isn't there? There has to be a better way than killing you both. Vergil. Once again, you failed to grasp the situation. St. Gant's student. Issei turned and looked at Vergil. Vergil. The Yamato is sharp, but it is limited to the dimensions of the place it resides within. Opening a portal to your universe even for a few seconds would take the combined life force energy of all living beings on the planet. Issei. All that for just a few seconds. Vergil nodded his head. Vergil. The only other way to travel across universes is with the power of Mundus. Issei fell into a contemplative silence as the eldest Sparda's words pierced the air. Mundus, a name that had been mentioned during one of their past training sessions, resurfaced in his mind. Mundus, also known as the Prince of Darkness and adorned with several other titles, was a formidable demon prince who had reigned over the demon world 2,000 years ago. He had seized power by overthrowing the previous ruler, posing a grave threat to both the demon world and the human realm. According to the information Issei had gathered, after Mundus ascended the Devil Throne, his rule was challenged by the demon god Argisax. A monumental war ensued, splitting the underworld into two factions. While Mundus aimed to conquer the human world, he found himself betrayed by Sparda, the legendary Dark Knight who had once served as his right-hand man. Sparda rebelled against Mundus, leading to the Demon King's ultimate defeat and subsequent sealing within the depths of the demon world. Sparda's significance was undeniable, considering he was not only the father of Dante and Vergil, but also the one who thwarted Mundus's ambitions. It led Issei to ponder whether, in their shared history as Mundus's loyal right-hand man, Sparda and Mundus had considered each other brothers in arms. If that were the case, it could technically make Mundus both Dante and Vergil's uncle, a peculiar notion that seemed far-fetched. However, due to the scarcity of information regarding Sparda's past and his life before marrying Dante and Vergil's mother, Issei couldn't entirely dismiss the idea. Uncertainty filled Issei's mind as he grappled with this theory. On one hand, he knew that both Dante and Vergil held a deep-seated resentment towards Mundus. Yet, he couldn't shake the thought entirely, deciding to tuck it away as a mere speculation for now, awaiting further clues or revelations that could shed light on the intricate connections between Sparda, Mundus, and their shared history. Dante? Yeah, there's no way we're getting the kid involved with him. He turned his attention to Issei, scratching the back of his head. Dante? We'll give you a minute to say goodbye to the others while we prepare. Sounds good. Issei hesitated, but he slowly nodded his head as he watched the two brothers walked off and left the boy all by himself. Well, not really, because Trish, Lady and the others soon approached him with looks of concern and worry on their faces. Trish, hey Issei, you okay? Silence. Trish. Issei. Silence again. Lady. Look Issei, we know that you don't want this, and trust me, death is something that no one wants. Issei. Why? The group stood together, their eyes fixated on the heart-wrenching sight unfolding before them. They witnessed the tears welling up in the eyes of a young boy with lustrous brown hair, his emotions cascading down his face like a gentle stream. Each tear traveled its own path, tracing a delicate trail across his cheeks, and finally descending onto the ground below. As the tears fell, they left behind a vivid stain, painting his cheeks and eyes with a deep crimson-red hue. The intensity of his sorrow was palpable, evident in the raw vulnerability etched upon his face. The onlookers couldn't help but feel a profound empathy, their hearts heavy with the weight of his unspoken pain. Issei. Why does life hate me? Nero remained silent, his mind flooded with memories of a similar situation he had experienced in the past. It took him back to the moment when he first encountered Dante and suffered a devastating loss. The parallels between that time and the present were haunting, and it stirred a mix of emotions within Nero. In this moment, Nero found himself relating to Issei, both of them questioning why the world seemed to harbor animosity towards them. They both grappled with the unfairness of their circumstances, pondering why they were subjected to such suffering and forced to endure these hardships. A surge of anger coursed through Nero's veins, surpassing mere frustration. He was livid at the current situation. His father and uncle had made the decision to sacrifice themselves, and Nero couldn't bring himself to confront them and reason with them. Deep down, he understood that this sacrifice was the only way to send Issei back to his own universe, but it didn't alleviate his turmoil. What troubled him even more was that his father and uncle didn't display any sorrow or regret, rather, they seemed content, almost relieved, to undertake this selfless act for him. Nero speculated that his father and uncle had reached a point in their lives where they had found fulfillment and were ready to pass the torch to another generation. They had lived their lives to the fullest extent possible, or at least to the best of their abilities, and now it was Nero's turn to shoulder the responsibility of protecting this world in their absence. It seemed that Issei was destined to experience a similar journey. But the newfound determination etched on his face, Nero approached Issei, his expression serious and resolute. Placing a hand gently on Issei's shoulder, he made the young man turn to face him, their eyes meeting in a moment filled with unspoken understanding. Nero. You know, I was in this exact situation a while back. When I first met Dante. I lost someone close to me, a brother. Issei. Nero. But on that day, I learned something new about life. Something that shall forever stick with me. Issei. What is it? Nero smiled. Nero. That you keep moving forward, there will be times that the past shall come back, but you just need to keep going. Issei. Keep going. Nero nodded his head. Nero. Yes, just keep going and eventually things shall work in your favor. Issei fell silent as Nero's words seemed to have impacted him a great deal. He slowly clenched his hand into a fist as he grew a small smile. Issei. Thanks. Deadweight. Nero. No trouble, hey. Issei chuckled as Nero's eye began to twitch in annoyance. The others began snickering in amusement, but they were glad that Issei was back to normal. Nero. You're ridiculous. Issei. No, that's you. Nero. Fuck you. Issei laughed even harder. Nero was annoyed, but he soon grew a small smile as he was glad that he managed to cheer up the brown-haired boy. Flashback end. Issei, with a wide grin adorning his face, couldn't help but release a soft chuckle, his mind already buzzing with mischievous plans to irk Deadweight upon his return to his own world. One idea that particularly appealed to him was designing a custom t-shirt, proudly displaying his own name, a surefire way to not only make a quick buck, but also ruffle Nero's feathers. Lost in his imaginative musings, Issei firmly believed that executing this plan would be a top priority once he finally made it back to his universe. However, as he pondered the matter further, a sense of curiosity began to creep into his thoughts. Why hadn't he arrived back in his own universe yet? Was traversing across different universes truly a time-consuming affair? After all, when he was unexpectedly whisked away into Dante and Vergil's realm, the transition had been almost instantaneous. So, what could be causing this prolonged delay now? Issei couldn't help but wonder. Issei, hey Drake. How long have we been in here for? Silence. Issei. Drake. Silence again. This confused Issei. Why was Drake not responding to him? Was he sleeping? Was he angry? No, that can't be the case because Issei hasn't done anything that would annoy the Welsh dragon into silence. Maybe it's because of his current situation. Perhaps Drake is unable to speak because of the vortex he was being flung through. That would make the most sense. However, he still doesn't know how long it has been since he departed Dante and Vergil's world. As Issei pondered these thoughts, suddenly, out of nowhere, a bright light flashed in front of him, causing the boy to instinctively cover his eyes, hoping to avoid being blinded. But that wasn't the only thing that happened to him. He soon felt himself crash into something very hard. Issei cried out in pain and agony, as it felt like he had just been struck by a truck or something equally powerful. Every part of him screamed in complete and utter agony, and he suspected that he had broken a few bones. Slowly, he opened his eyes, only to find himself lying on a concrete surface. Concrete. Issei's eyes widened in disbelief as he desperately tried to get up, hoping to confirm if he had indeed returned to his own world. Wow, that had to have hurt. Issei perked up at the sudden, mysterious yet strangely familiar voice, slowly turning his head towards the source. He was shocked by what he saw standing above him. It was himself. He thought he was seeing things, but he wasn't. There was another Issei Hyoudou standing over him, but this one looked significantly different. He was taller, muscular, with long white hair that cascaded down to his waist. His crimson-red eyes gleamed with intensity, and a long reptilian-like tail swayed behind him. Issei's mind raced with confusion and disbelief. How could there be another version of himself? And why did this alternate Issei possess such powerful and striking features? It was as if he had transformed into a completely different being. Issei. Who are you? The second Issei crossed his arms, smirking in amusement. Issei. Isn't it obvious? I'm Issei Hyoudou, but you can call me Ultima. We've been expecting you. Devil may cry. Third person Pav. Confusion. Confusion overwhelmed Issei as he fixated on the figure standing before him. His mind struggled to comprehend what he was seeing, as if his head needed time to recover from the impact he had just experienced. It was unthinkable, was he really staring at himself? The mere existence of another Issei Hyoudou was perplexing. It defied all logic, for he knew he was the one and only Issei Hyoudou. Unless the person in front of him was either an illusion or a clone crafted by some enigmatic scientists, this bewildering situation should not be happening. Moreover, what was that name he just called him? Devil May Cry. Was it a nickname or perhaps the title of something significant? The name sounded peculiar, yet there was an inexplicable allure to it that resonated with the brown-haired boy. He couldn't quite put his finger on why it felt that way. Nevertheless, he had to focus on the matter at hand, unraveling the identity of this person and understanding why they seemed to anticipate his arrival. Issei remained vigilant, cautiously rising to his feet while keeping his eyes fixed on the individual who had introduced himself as Ultima. The word itself, a shortened form of ultimate, unsettled Issei. It implied a level of power and capability that surpassed his comprehension. While vanquishing demons was one thing, he had no inkling whether this individual was a demon or something entirely different, an enigma waiting to be deciphered. Ultima let out an amused chuckle. Ultima. No need to be on edge, Devil May Cry. I'm not gonna do anything. Issei merely narrowed his eyes at the white-haired being. Issei. Who are you? Why do you look like me? Hearing this made Ultima sigh a little as he rubbed the bridge of his nose, sounding very annoyed for some reason. This was a surprisingly unexpected shift in attitude which took the boy by surprise, because one minute he was chill, the next he sounds like a disappointed father. Ultima. Didn't you hear me? I'm Issei Hyoudou, but you can call me Ultim. Issei. No. You're not. There's no way that there is a second me, especially one so monstrous. Ultima only deadpanned at the boy. Ultima. You just insulted yourself, Dumbus. Issei. No, I insulted some demon trying to be me. Ultima let out a small sigh, shaking his head, before the duo soon heard a laugh which gained their attention. They turned their heads to the source and saw a red carpet rolling up to them which confused Issei and made Ultima growl in annoyance. Ultima. Great. Issei was confused, but all of that was soon replaced by complete and utter shock as he soon realized something. He wasn't in his universe. He was actually in space, or rather what looked like space, which shocked him, because he should be dead right now if he were in outer space. Don't worry too much about that, kid. The author isn't good with explanations. Issei grew more confused as from the red carpet came another Issei Hyoudou. This one looked like his regular self with a few adjustments, such as his hair was a little more messy, he was wearing what appeared to be royal clothes and he looked like a cartoon character. The newcomer smiled at Issei, taking out a carrot from his pocket and proceeding to bite into it. Issei. Hey, what's up doc? Issei. Who are you? Ultima. Why are you here, Toon? The newcomer named Toon looked at Ultima and smiled as he somehow appeared next to the white-haired boy and rested on his shoulder. Toon. What? Am I not invited? I'm Issei as well. Ultima. You're an annoyance more like it. Toon reared back and gasped very loudly, much to Ultima's annoyance as a blue glow began to appear in his mouth. Ultima. Will you? Issei's eyes widened as he observed multiple ethereal blue rings materializing in front of Ultima. The sight alone prompted the brown-haired boy to instinctively take a significant step backward, anticipating danger. His intuition proved accurate as Ultima unleashed a powerful beam of peculiar blue energy, aimed directly at Toon. And it consumed Toon, his eyes widening in terror as he began to scream. However, the terror-stricken screams were short-lived as Toon abruptly halted and coughed, his throat feeling sore from the previous outburst. He swiftly retrieved an item from his pocket and sprayed it into his mouth. Locking eyes with the readers, he displayed a mischievous smile before resuming his screams, this time donning a different expression. Issei watched in awe as the attack surged forward, propelling itself through the vast expanse of space. Its trajectory led it towards a black hole located millions of light years away from their current position. Issei assumed that the beam would be absorbed by the black hole, as that was the nature of these celestial entities. They swallowed everything, allowing nothing to escape their gravitational grasp. To his astonishment, upon contact with the black hole, the beam triggered a cataclysmic explosion, engulfing the cosmic abyss in a blaze of immense brilliance. The explosion was so colossal that it appeared as if a second sun had been born, instilling a sense of dread within Issei. He remained fixed in place, his gaze unwavering, as he witnessed the gradual dissipation of the conflagration, unveiling the annihilation of the black hole. Countless stars, either being devoured by its voracious pull or destined to be, were consumed in the process. Issei's gaze shifted slowly towards Ultima, who stood with his arms crossed. The remnants of his earlier display dissipated into the air, vanishing or dispersing into whatever inexplicable force kept them grounded to the concrete beneath their feet. Issei. Why you just? Ultima. Nah, he's fine. Issei blinked. Issei. Huh. Ultima. He's not dead, unfortunately. Plus there's no way he could die to one of my weakest attacks in this form. Oh, Ultima. You care. Issei perked up as he turned and saw Toon coming toward them, riding in the pouch of a kangaroo with the end of a speedboat. Issei was dumbfounded as he watched his doppelganger jump out of the kangaroo, waving bye to it as the creature sped off into the depths of space before disappearing from view. Issei was now full of even more questions than he originally had, for example what the absolute hell was going on. How was Toon even still alive? Toon. Oh, that's simple. Issei. Huh. Toon. As my name says, I'm a Toon. Something like that won't harm me. Issei blinked in surprise. Does he have sort of strange power or something? Because the boy didn't say anything, nor did he think of it either. Toon. Nah, I can just see what the author is doing. He then turned his attention to the readers, his expression changing as it zoomed close to his face. Issei blinked in confusion as he looked at Ultima for context on what Toon was talking about. Ultima. Don't ask, it's best if you don't know. Issei. Okay then. Toon soon stopped what he was doing and looked at Issei and Ultima, smiling at the two as he still had the carrot from before in his hand. Toon. So doc, how about we introduce him to the others? Ultima. Forced, never call me that and second fine. Toon somehow appeared next to Ultima again, patting his back. Toon. Oh, don't be like that. You gotta learn to smile. Ultima growled. Ultima. I'd rather die again. Toon nearly shrugged his shoulders as he looked at Issei, who looked like he was going through some sort of existential crisis, his expression full of confusion and disbelief by what was happening before him at the moment. Toon couldn't really blame the boy, this certainly was a lot to take in, and no one would just get the hang of it in a matter of seconds. Toon. Don't worry too much, kid. We got you back, let's head off. With that, Toon firmly grasped the wrist of the brown-haired boy and effortlessly pulled him along with impressive strength. Ultima trailed behind the two, rolling his eyes at Toon's overbearing personality as they approached a structure a few feet away from their location. The structure before them bore a striking resemblance to a bar or a large club-like building. The front was adorned with an array of neolights, illuminating the surroundings. At the top of the structure, a sign proudly displayed the words "Hangout Area, open 24/7. Issei deduced that this was the preferred gathering spot for his two doppelgangers, where they enjoyed spending leisurely time. Interestingly enough, Issei found it amusing, as he could envision himself doing the same. As the trio stepped through the front entrance, Issei's eyes widened in astonishment. It was as if reality had undergone a remarkable transformation. The interior exceeded all expectations in terms of size. Countless objects were scattered throughout the space, including a gaming room, a fully stocked bar, a training area, a well-equipped kitchen, a cozy living room, and even a therapy room, if Issei's eyes did not deceive him. The room seemed to contain an endless array of unique features and amenities. However, this was merely the tip of the iceberg. Issei's gaze wandered and locked onto an astonishing sight. Numerous doppelgangers, stretching as far as the eye could see. There were countless replicas, possibly numbering in the thousands, millions, or even trillions. Each doppelganger possessed distinct physical attributes and traits, yet they all bore his face. It felt like a surreal fever dream brought to life. Issei fervently hoped that he had not stumbled upon some kind of cult or fanboy club, as the thought alone was enough to give him nightmares. Tune. So Devil May Cry, what you think? Issei. Well, it certainly. Tune. Spectacular. Amazing. Astronomical. Breathtaking. Ultima cut Tune off by slapping him in the back of the head. Ultima. He's going with it something, right? Devil May Cry. Issei nodded his head, again with that word. Why does he keep calling him Devil May Cry? Is it because they all were Issei, and it would be too hard to remember who's who? Tune. Let's go introduce you to some of the dudes. With that, Tune firmly grasped Issei's wrist once again and proceeded to drag him away. Meanwhile, Ultima found himself alone, feeling a sense of annoyance. He let out a sigh, shaking his head in exasperation. As he stood there, he reached into his pocket and retrieved an old photograph. The picture appeared to be weathered and worn, its age evident from its faded appearance. It seemed to have endured the passage of time for 100 years or more. Dust, tinged with a reddish hue, clung to one corner of the photograph. Upon closer inspection, the image revealed Ultima standing alongside another person. The individual captured in the photo was a strikingly beautiful young woman. She wore spectacles, possessed captivating gold-colored eyes, and her lightly tousled brunette hair was elegantly braided on each side. Ultima's gaze lingered on the picture, tuning out the clamor caused by the other Issei surrounding him. A small yet melancholic smile formed on his lips as he reminisced. This person held immense significance to him, someone who could have instigated a profound change within his heart if only she hadn't been tragically taken away from him all those years ago. The girl's name was Aika Kiryu, and she encompassed everything to Ultima. She was his wife. Ultima. Aika. Meanwhile, Tune was still dragging Issei along with him, as the boy was still trying to let everything settle down. He thought there was only 2 doppelgangers, but apparently there are more of them than he realized. Issei. So, who are we gonna meet? Tune. How about? Tune, why are you dragging him? Both Issei and Tune perked up as they turned their heads to see another Issei Hyoudou. This one looked normal, except for the fact that the clothes were tied on him. He wore what would be a loose jacket was pressed against his chest, almost showing off his muscles. His pants were snug on him. Heck, they looked like they barely fit him, with his forearms more than poking out. And he was taller, and his hair more styled than normal. Tune. Ah, Solo. It has been a while. The newcomer named Solo chuckled a little, smiling at Tune. Solo. It has indeed, Tune. But that doesn't answer my question, why are you dragging Devil May Cry? Tune. I'm showing him around, I thought it would be nice for him to meet the others before he heads off. Solo fell silent for a few seconds before shrugging his shoulders. He didn't see anything wrong with Tune's plan. Solo. Why not? He looked at Issei and held his hand out to the brown-haired boy. Solo. Nice to meet you, Devil May Cry. The name's Solo leveling Issei, or Solo for short. Issei was a little hesitant at first, since he has absolutely no idea who or what these guys were capable of. But they seemed chill, plus if they were actually him, but different, then he could trust them because he wasn't the type to want to harm others. So, Issei took Solo's hand and shook it. Issei. Nice to meet you, Solo. Solo smiled. Solo. Here, Tune and I shall introduce you to a few of the others. Issei nodded as Tune magically appeared next to Solo, who wasn't surprised at all by the sudden appearance, and he gestured to another person. Solo. This is Reaper. Issei looked as he saw that Reaper had a interesting appearance, to say the least. He was a tall man with a muscular build. Reaper wore a black form-fitting tactical suit that emphasizes his menacing presence on the battlefield. The suit looked to be made of a highly durable and flexible material, maybe allowing Reaper to move swiftly and effortlessly. The fabric appeared to have a slight sheen to it, giving it a sleek, polished look. Starting from the top, Reaper wore a hooded mask that conceals most of his face, leaving only his glowing red eyes visible. The mask had a skull-like design, with elongated features and sharp angles, adding to his ominous persona. The hood was attached to the mask and drapes over his head, shadowing his face and creating an air of mystery. Moving down, Reaper's suit had several layers and intricate details. Over his suit, he wore a dark tattered cloak that billows dramatically behind him, adding to his ominous silhouette. The cloak was adorned with frayed edges and has a faded, worn texture, giving it a weathered appearance. The upper portion of Reaper's suit featured a padded armor vest that provides protection while maintaining flexibility. The vest was mainly black with dark gray accents, and it had a ribbed texture and angular plates, giving it an edgy and aggressive look. The vest extended to his shoulders, where additional armor plating was present, emphasizing his powerful and imposing stature. Reaper's gloves are also an integral part of his outfit. They are made of a sturdy fingerless material, allowing him to maintain dexterity while handling weapons. The gloves had metallic accents and segmented armor on the back of the hand, providing both style and functionality. Moving to the lower part of his attire, Reaper wore tactical pants that matched the rest of his outfit. The pants are form-fitting and black, featuring multiple pockets and reinforced stitching. Completing his ensemble, Reaper wore combat boots that are robust and designed for agility. The boots have a polished black finish and additional armor plating, providing stability and protection during combat. Overall, Reaper's outfit exudes darkness, power, and a touch of the macabre. The combination of his hooded mask, tattered cloak, armored vest, gloves, tactical pants, and combat boots creates a visually striking appearance that perfectly complements his relentless and fearsome playstyle on the battlefield. Issei. He looks. Solo. Yeah, he gets that a lot. Right, Reaper. Reaper grunted in acknowledgement, his red eyes staring into Issei's soul, which creeped the boy out. But it was only for a moment, as he soon turned and went back to what he was doing, which was leaning against a wall with his head down. Issei. Is he okay? Dune chuckled. Dune. Yeah, he's fine. Just a little grumpy, like he always is. Before Dune could finish his sentence, his head retracted into his body like a turtle going into its shell, as Reaper took out a shotgun and tried to shoot Dune's head off. However, Dune popped his head back out and smiled. Dune. See? Issei. Dune. Next one. Dune reached over and pulled over the next Issei, who like Reaper, also had a very interesting appearance. He was a tall and slender figure, standing at around 7 feet (2.1 meters) in height. Clad in a tattered and worn brown overcoat, his attire gave off a distressed and ragged appearance, as if he has emerged from the shadows of the darkest pits of hell. His face, the most striking feature, is a horrifying visage designed to instill fear. His head was covered by a burlap sack, crudely stitched together with thick black threads. The sack is worn and frayed, revealing patches of straw-like stuffing protruding from its seams. 2 round, hollow eye holes are cut into the burlap, giving him an eerie and soul-piercing gaze. The eyes themselves were a piercing shade of yellow, glowing with an otherworldly intensity. The Issei's hands were skeletal and bony, with long, gnarled fingers that end in wickedly sharp and dirty nails. He wore tattered gloves, their fabric worn and torn, further emphasizing his decrepit nature. Around his neck, the Issei sported a thick black collar with metal spikes, adding an additional element of danger. In summary, he was a haunting figure with a towering presence. Issei silently gulped to himself as he stared at this new Issei. He was different, not normal if he looked like that. What happened to him? What made him turn into the monstrosity before him? Dune smiled as he pat the newcomer's back. Dune. This here is Scarecrow, he and I are very good buddies. Scarecrow turned his head to Dune and Solo, letting out a noise which sounded like bones were cracking with each muscle movement in his neck. Scarecrow. Dune, Solo. Is this Devil May Cry? Solo nodded his head. Solo. Yeah, he just showed up. I think Ultima brought him. Dune gasped in shock, his mouth stretching very wide as he appeared in front of Solo with an annoyed expression on his face. Dune. How dare you? I also brought him. He crossed his arms. Dune. Give me some credit. Solo playfully rolled his eyes as Scarecrow looked at Issei and surprisingly, bowing a little to him. Scarecrow. Greeting Devil May Cry, I am Issei Hyoudou. But to avoid confusion, call me Scarecrow. Issei. Thanks. Nice to meet you too. I guess. Scarecrow and Issei watched as Dune began yelling at Solo in a chibi form, the latter shaking his head as he wasn't even gonna bother with a temper tantrum. Solo. So Devil May Cry, you wanna meet more? Issei. I guess. Solo. Alright, let's go. Dune pouted. Dune. Hey. He then looked at the readers, crossing his arms. Dune. You lot enjoy this way too much. Third person POV. Happiness. That is what Issei Hyoudou was currently experiencing at the moment. He was filled with nothing but pure happiness as he stared up at the sky. The boy was standing on a bridge, a familiar bridge as the sky was a deep shade of orange, the sun slowly setting over in the horizon. A smile grew onto his face as he couldn't believe it, after so long he was finally home. After months of training and that little side trip with his alternative selves, Issei had finally returned to his world, and from the look of things, surprisingly nothing seemed to have changed during his absence in another world. Issei wasn't sure if this was due to the time difference between two different universes or it was just pure luck, but everything seemed to be how it was when he was sucked through the portal. Although, to truly make sure that not much had changed in his absence, Issei had taken out his phone and checked the time. The result was both a surprise and an annoyance because he had barely been gone for a minute, well according to his phone that is. Either this was totally wrong and he needed to get his device fixed, or it was completely true. Issei was hoping that it wasn't the latter, because if he had been gone for barely a minute, then he was gonna shoot someone in the fucking face. Issei sighed, rubbing the back of his head as he stared up at the orange sky. Issei. Man, to think that I was only gone for a mini. Issei's right hand glowed as the boy looked at it, seeing a familiar glowing green gem. Greg. Indeed, partner. Then again, it was obvious that travel across worlds would have some effect on your concept of time. Issei. Yeah, but this is how everything way before I got sucked through the portal. He lowered his arm as he placed both of them in his pockets, letting out a small sigh before turning to the right and began to walk off. If he had only been gone for a minute, then his date with Yuma was still on Sunday, and that was one of the things he wanted to do when he got back. Greg. So, what's the plan? Issei looked up at the sky, thinking for a moment before he smirked. Issei. How about we get some pizza for dinner? Issei heard the Welsh dragon groan in annoyance, much to the boy's amusement. Greg. Dante was a terrible influence. Issei laughed as he arrived on the other side of the bridge and walked off, his stomach rumbling a little for the taste of pizza. Although, unknown to him, someone had been watching him the entire time and had seen his sudden disappearance and reappearance. The person was a petite girl with white hair and gold eyes. The front of her hair has two long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back has a short bob cut. She also wears a black cat-shaped hair clip on both sides of her hair. She was surprised when she saw one of the members of the perverted trio getting sucked into some random portal, only to come out a minute later looking completely different. She watched as Issei walked off, narrowing her eyes as she licked her popsicle which had started to melt due to her not touching it. Girl. I better report back to President. With that, she turned and began to make her way back toward Kuoh Academy. Time skip brought to you by Sukuna vs Jogo. After walking for like 5 or 10 minutes, Issei finally arrived back at his home which allowed Drake to finally see his partner's home firsthand. It didn't look like much, a simple 2-story tall building which seemed suitable for a small family. Although, something confused Issei and that was that Drake wanted to see his home which made zero sense to him since the dragon could just view his memories. Maybe he was trying to see if he could sense anything nearby. Normally Issei wouldn't be able to if he were just human. But due to his intense training with Vergil, the boy could now pick up on things he regularly couldn't. Greg. So this is where you live? Issei nodded his head. Issei. Yeah, it doesn't look like much, but it's still something. Greg. I guess you can say that. With that, Issei made his way toward the front door as he reached out for the doorknob. He grabbed onto it, turning it and opening the door as he entered inside the house and closed the door behind him. As he let go of the doorknob, his nose was instantly struck by the sweet scent of his mother's cooking. This immediately put a smile on the boy's face. His mother, in his opinion, made the best food in all of Kuoh. Sure, it probably wasn't jaw-dropping tier, but it was still good either way. Issei. Ah, I love that smell. Greg. I gotta say, it certainly does smell interesting, and this is coming from a dragon without a physical body. Issei chuckled slightly as he began to make his way toward the kitchen. Issei. I'm home. Mickey. We're in the kitchen. Issei soon arrived at the kitchen where he saw his mother, Issei Hyoudou, and his father, Kuoh Hyoudou. His mom was in the kitchen cooking some supper while his dad was close by, specifically the living room, and was watching the news. Mickey. Welcome back, Issei. How was your da? Mickey immediately halted what she was doing, her eyes widening in astonishment as she caught sight of her son. The shock of his appearance struck her like a bolt of lightning, causing her to freeze in place. Goru, who happened to glance over at that moment, felt his heart skip a beat as he took in the unexpected sight of their child. There was something undeniably different about their son. His hair had been trimmed shorter, creating a slightly disheveled yet stylish look. His facial features had sharpened, giving him a more mature and defined appearance. And to their amazement, they found themselves marveling at his seemingly increased height, as if he had grown overnight. Moreover, they couldn't help but notice that he seemed to have gained some noticeable muscle mass, indicating a physical transformation they hadn't anticipated. The sheer magnitude of their son's dramatic change left them utterly stunned. In their minds, he looked normal before he went to school, but to Issei, he had undergone months of rigorous training in a completely different world. The contrast between their perception of his daily routine and the reality of his transformation was jarring, and they couldn't help but grapple with a mix of surprise, pride, and concern. As they stood there, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions, Miki slowly walked over to her child and placed a hand on his cheek. "Miki? Issei, is that you?" Issei rubbed the back of his neck as he let out a slight nervous chuckle. He had a feeling before he arrived that his parents would ask questions about his sudden change. Unfortunately, Issei doesn't have access to magic which allows him to look like his old self. So he has to settle for the next best thing, which is lying, because if he doesn't then he was gonna be here for quite a while. Issei. "Yeah, it's me, Mom." "Miki. What happened to you?" Issei. "Let's just say, I kinda fell asleep in class and well, my classmates decided to do a little prank on me." Issei could hear Drake facepalming in the back of his mind. He couldn't blame him really, because even Issei himself wanted to cringe from his terrible lie. Like seriously, the only ones who were gonna fall for such a lie are complete idiots or those on drugs. However, he was soon saved from having to explain any further, as the silence between the brown-haired boy and his mother was cancelled by the sound of his stomach. This immediately got Miki's attention as Issei chuckled a little. Issei. Sorry. I guess I'm a little hun. Miki. You go sit down, I'll finish up with dinner. Issei blinked, surprised by his mother's sudden change in personality as she rushed back to the kitchen to finish making dinner. Turning his head, Issei looked at his father who just shrugged his shoulders at his wife's antics and just went back to watching the TV as he waited to have dinner. Issei sweat dropped at this, while Drake just deadpanned and just shook his head because he could not believe that his partner's own parents aren't even asking their child about his sudden change in appearance. They were playing this off like it was nothing. Then again, considering how perverted his partner was in the past, then he can see why they are not questioning this. Maybe to them, this was just another one of their son's antics at getting a girlfriend, or as Issei would put it, a harem. Greg. Partner. Issei. Yeah. Greg. You have a weird family. Issei sweat dropped. Issei. Yeah, I know. I'm Skip, brought to you by Did You Pray Today? Issei let a small sigh. Issei. I can't sleep. Currently, Issei was laying on his messy bed and was just staring at his bedroom ceiling with a bored expression on his face. He was still wearing the clothes he had worn, but he made sure to take a shower, because if he didn't then his mother, Trish, and Lady would have his head. The only one who was really chill with the brown-haired boy not having a shower was Nico, and that because she was awesome. Unfortunately, neither she nor Trish or Lady were here. But back to the main topic, Issei just stared at his bedroom ceiling for a while before he decided that he has had enough. He needed to do something. If he didn't then he would lose his bloody mind due to the boredom. Issei. Drake, is there anything close by for me to deal with? Drake. Actually, there is. This immediately gained Issei's attention as his attention was drawn to the glowing gem in his hand. Issei. I'm listening. Drake. There's a stray devil that you can kill. It's probably weak, but it's better than laying here. Issei smirked. Issei. Say no more. Issei stood up from his bed, made his way over to his door and opened it. He then began to surprisingly make his way downstairs toward the front door without making any noise, well, not enough to wake up his parents. Issei reached out for the doorknob, and when he grabbed onto it, he turned it and opened the door. He then silently exited his house while shutting the door behind him. He didn't want to get his parents involved with this, so the more they remain in the dark the better. The boy walked out to the street before he turned his attention to Drake. Issei. Okay, what's the direction? Drake. Start heading north, I'll guide you. Issei nodded affirmatively as he set off on his journey towards the north, uncertain about what he would discover, but knowing that anything would be better than nothing. As he walked, he maintained a vigilant watch, scanning his surroundings to the right and left. The absence of people didn't come as a surprise since it was nighttime, a time when few ventured outside. However, Issei remained on guard, prepared for any potential threats. With the newfound power he possessed, he felt confident that very few things could pose a significant danger to him. Recalling his earlier conversation, Issei remembered Dante mentioning that he was a member of a small group known as the God Trio or something similar. According to Dante, there were two others in the group. A bald man adorned with red markings and an infuriated individual who had lost his pet rabbit to demons. Issei couldn't help but find the whole concept ridiculous and twisted, yet he acknowledged that Dante had proven himself reliable in the past. Continuing his journey towards the stray devil, assisted by Drake, Issei began sensing the energy emanating from it. Initially feeble, the energy gradually grew stronger as he drew near. Despite this, Drake assured him that there was no reason to fear. The increase in energy was simply a result of Issei getting closer to his target rather than an indication of the stray devil's actual strength. Before long, Issei arrived in front of an abandoned warehouse, prompting him to react with a deadpan expression. The sight of the dilapidated building led him to believe that he would likely encounter similar locations in the future. The warehouse appeared to have been deserted for many years, evident from the rust coating the surrounding metal and the shattered windows that Issei could clearly see. Issei. Wow, totally not a horror movie scene if I ever saw one. Issei cautiously approached the door, taking his time to ensure his safety. He peered inside through a narrow gap in the front door, but due to the darkness, he couldn't see anything at all. With a hint of curiosity and a touch of bravery, he decided to open the door and step inside. As the door creaked open, Issei entered the warehouse, revealing an interior that mirrored the dilapidation of the exterior. Broken crates were strewn about haphazardly, their contents spilled onto the floor. Shards of glass glimmered in the dim light, evidence of past destruction. Among the debris, Issei noticed some damaged machines, their parts scattered and discarded. Surveying the scene, Issei concluded that this place had once served as a shipping facility, a hub where cargo was stored before the establishment eventually ceased operations. The remnants of its former purpose were evident in the discarded crates and the remnants of what must have been conveyor belts or other machinery. The warehouse now stood as a desolate testament to its bygone era, abandoned and left to decay over time. Issei. Reminds me of my bedroom after that party I threw last month. Greg. Which one? The one with MLP or the one with the anal beads? Issei sweat-dropped, almost forgetting that Drake has access to all of his memories. Issei. The one with the eye present. Issei stopped mid-sentence as he sensed something. He narrowed his eyes as he could feel something large a couple of feet in front of him. A low growl came from the darkness. Issei was instantly on guard from this. He narrowed his eyes as he watched some sort of six-legged spider creature walk out of the shadows. It was hideous, it was hairy and looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Issei got into a fighting stance as he only had one thing to say to the creature. Issei. You're one ugly motherfucker. The creature's piercing eyes locked onto Issei, its gaze filled with malice. In a display of pure fury, it unleashed a deafening and earth-shaking roar that reverberated through the ground and rattled the very structure of the building they were in. The sheer intensity of the roar conveyed an overwhelming anger, leaving Issei to ponder if the creature had comprehended his words. The unexpectedness of its response caught Issei off guard, leaving him uncertain about the creature's next move. Would it launch an attack or return to its previous activities? Much to Issei's disappointment, the creature bellowed once again, this time charging furiously toward him. Issei's eyes narrowed in determination as he prepared to face the impending assault. Just as the creature swung its massive appendage, Issei swiftly evaded the attack, leaping out of harm's way with remarkable agility. The force of the creature's strike collided with a cluster of wooden crates, instantly reducing them to splinters and sending shards of wood hurtling in all directions. The creature seethed with anger, its attention swiftly refocused on Issei. However, before it could retaliate, Issei seized the opportunity. With lightning speed, the brown-haired boy positioned himself directly in front of the creature's menacing visage. His right eye emitted a fiery red glow, while his left eye emanated an ethereal blue radiance, a testament to the extraordinary power dwelling within him. Issei. Jackpot. Third-person POV. The new day dawned over the picturesque town of Kuoh, casting its warm glow upon the bustling streets below. The radiant sun sat high in the sky, illuminating everything in its wrathful rays. The tranquil scene was accompanied by the harmonious melodies of birds soaring through the vast expanse of the open blue, while a gentle breeze delicately rustled the leaves of the majestic trees. Inside the Hyoudou household, an atmosphere of serenity prevailed, with the exception of Issei Hyoudou, who was currently busy in the kitchen, preparing a delicious breakfast for her husband and son. Her husband, engrossed in reading a newspaper, occupied the living room, while their son remained in his bedroom. Issei wasn't surprised to find her son still in bed. Knowing his habits, it was likely that he had stayed up late indulging in one of his less than appropriate magazines. She couldn't help but feel a tinge of disappointment, as she believed her son possessed the potential to be an exceptional student, if not for the influence of her somewhat foolish husband. Reflecting on the past, Issei couldn't fathom why her husband, Kuoh, had taken it upon himself to introduce their innocent 5-year-old son to such explicit material. It was an action that left her bewildered and disheartened. To make matters worse, Kuoh had provided a disturbingly detailed explanation of what pornography entailed, going as far as deeming it magnificent. Issei often questioned her decision to marry Kuoh, as his perverted nature had been a constant annoyance throughout their relationship. However, she supposed that his peculiar sense of humor had initially attracted her to him. Issei speculated that Kuoh's perverted tendencies somehow made him amusing, or at least that's what she used to believe. Though she struggled to recall the exact reason she fell in love with him, she understood that dwelling on the past wouldn't change the fact that Kuoh had corrupted their son at a young age. Miki looked up at the ceiling. Reason for this is because her son's bedroom is directly above the kitchen. Miki. Issei, breakfast is ready. Silence. Issei. Issei. You hear me? Silence. Miki let out a small sigh. Looks like she is gonna have to go and wake her son up yet again. Seriously, she swears that the alarm clock that she unfortunately bought for him does absolutely nothing. Miki. Looks like I gotta go wake him up again. Wake who up, mom? Miki perked up as she turned and saw her son, dressed immaculately in a crisp white shirt and long black jeans. She noticed he had a towel in his hands, drying his hair, suggesting that he had just taken a shower. To her surprise, Miki was taken aback. She had expected her son to either still be asleep or simply ignore her, possibly engrossed in some adult magazine. However, it seemed she was mistaken. It appeared that he was taking his date seriously. He had mentioned going on a date with a girl named Yuma, but neither Miki nor Kuoh, her husband, believed him. And why would they? It was Issei, after all. No offense to their son, but he lacked finesse when it came to asking a girl out on a date. Moreover, Miki couldn't help but question Yuma's sanity. Why would she want to go on a date with her son, who was nicknamed the enemy of all women at his school? Issei hardly seemed like boyfriend material. Nevertheless, Issei seemed genuinely invested in making a good impression. He had tidied up his hair, donned decent clothes, and even smelled better than usual. However, Miki knew that preparing for something wasn't the same as actually executing it. Issei could easily mess this up, possibly by acting inappropriately and ruining his chances with Yuma, assuming she even existed. If she did, Miki anticipated meeting this girl to determine her authenticity and whether she was a figment of Issei's imagination. Miki. Well, you seem to be taking this date seriously. Issei nodded his head. Issei. Yeah, I gotta give Yuma a good time or else I wouldn't be dressed up. Miki. Well. Be good on your date, you hear me? Issei let out a small sigh. Issei. Mom, for THR last time. Yuma isn't someone I made off the top of my head. Miki. I'm not saying that she is. Kuoh, who was listening in on the two's conversation, looked up from his newspapers and turned to his wife. Kuoh. Yes, your honey. Miki turned and glared at Kuoh, making him flinch a little. Miki. Shut up. Kuoh. Why yes, ma'am. Kuoh went back to reading his newspaper as Issei couldn't help but sweat drop at the scene in front of him. Greg. Once again, your parents are very weird, partner. Issei. Trust me, I am not denying that. Time skip. After Issei had his breakfast and said his goodbye to his parents, he made his way over to where he told Yuma to meet him, which was Kuoh Park, specifically the water fountain. As he was walking, Issei had his hands in his pockets as he observed his surroundings. He saw cars drive down the road, people walking on the sidewalk, and witnessed a few birds fly over him, but none of them seemed to be drawing his attention. Greg told the boy that devils and fallen angels love to hide amongst people, acting like regular citizens, while angels don't really leave heaven that often unless it's extremely important. Issei figured that he should be alright. Sure, he has only killed that one state devil, but that was at least a mid-level devil from what Drake has told him. Issei trusts the Welsh dragon's words because Issei isn't really well fluid with his own world supernatural ranking system just yet. After walking for around a few minutes, Issei had finally arrived at the fountain. He took out his phone and checked to see that the time was 10:55 am, which meant that he still had 5 minutes before his date with Yuma will begin. The brown-haired boy took a deep breath as he exhaled. He can't do this. He can do this, he won't mess this date up. Here, have a flyer. This gained Issei's attention as he turned his head and was greeted by a beautiful young woman who seemed like she was cosplaying or something like that because she had a pair of bat wings on her back. Issei observed her as she handled him a flyer as he took the piece of paper, though his senses immediately went off like crazy. The woman before him was not human, she was something supernatural. Greg. Partner. Issei. I know. Issei smiled at the woman. Issei. Thank you, I hope you have a good day. The woman smiled back as she turned and walked off. Issei watched as his eyes narrowed slightly before he turned his attention to the flyer that he was given. He looked it over firmly as the piece of paper had a strange symbol upon it, some writing underneath it that said, "May your wishes come true." Issei. So, is she a devil? Greg. No, she must be a familiar. This gained Issei's attention. Issei. A familiar? What's that? Greg. A familiar is a. However, before Drake could continue with his explanation, Issei accidentally bumoed into someone which sent both him and the person onto the ground. The boy groaned as he shook his head, looking up to see who he accidentally bumped into. To his surprise, it was a very familiar young girl who had gold-colored eyes, light messy brunette hair tied into braids on each side, and had a pair of glasses. Issei. Aika. The girl named Aika shook off her daze as she looked at the boy. Aika. Hyoudou. Is that you? Issei stood up, dusting off his suit as he held his hand out to Aika, who took it, and he helped her up to her feet. Aika Kiryu, a classmate of his who has been attending the same classes since he began attending Kuoh Academy. Issei has only ever had a few conversations with her, mainly cause she creeper out Issei and his friends. Like Issei used to be, Aika is a bit of a pervert and a massive one at that. However, Aika somehow has this unique ability she dubs the size scouter, which gives her the ability to calculate a male's manhood size just by looking, and this has given her the nicknames erotic girl and perverted glasses. Aika. It's been a while since we last chatted, Hyoudou. Issei. Yeah, it has. She then noticed Issei's new appearance, which surprised her. Last time she saw Issei, he never looked anything like this. Aika. Did you get a haircut or something? What's with the new look? Issei scratched the back of his head, smiling a little. Issei. Yeah, you can say something like that. Aika. I gotta say, I kinda like it. Suits you. Issei couldn't help but sweat drop, chuckling slightly. Issei, thanks Aika. Aika had to admit, for someone who is dubbed the enemy of all women, Issei was looking real good right now. If the girls at Kuoh saw him right now, they would most likely be questioning whether they should still attack him or not, because right now, Issei's looks were on par with Kiba's, and that is very rare. Aika decided to check something, her gaze moved down to Issei's crotch. However, once she looked down, she felt like someone hit her with a hammer, because she sensed something big coming from Issei's pants. Aika. What's this? I'm having an error. No, I never had this type of situation. Issei. So, what have you been up to, Aika? Aika. Not much. Her gaze moved back down to Issei's crotch, narrowing her eyes as she tried to get a better look. But the same thing like before happened, which shocked Aika as her face became a little red. Aika. What the hell is in his pants? It's unbelievable. Issei. Aika, you okay? You seem distracted. Aika. It could be the size of a damn anaconda or porn star level. It goes beyond 10 inches, my god. He has a monster and I need to see it. Aika's face became more red as she began to drool slightly, yet unnoticeable. Issei. Aika. You okay? While Aika was pretty much having the most uncensored idea on her mind, the girl wanted to touch it, but she knew it would mean trouble. She wanted to see that thing and very badly, like what girl wouldn't want to in her position. Suddenly, right on the spot, she came up with a plan that may just work on Issei, but she would have to be smart about it. Aika. Hey, Issei. Issei. Yeah. Aika smiled. Aika. I'm having a party on next Friday, you wanna come? Issei was surprised by this. Aika was offering an invention to a party. He wondered if he was either dreaming or having a nightmare, because this has never happened before and from Aika of all people. However, Issei didn't see anything wrong with her invention. But he is gonna keep his guard up, not because Aika could try something against his life, but he gets the feeling he's gotta protect his family jewels from a great evil. Issei. Alright, I guess I'll accept your invitation to this party. On the outside, Aika was smiling happily to hear that Issei accepted, but internally she was smirking that phase 1 of her plan was a success. Aika. Alright, glad to hear. She then grabbed Issei's phone and began to punch in some numbers. After a few seconds she handed it back to the brown-haired boy. Aika. There you go, I just gave you my contacts, and the party will start at 5 p.m. Issei nodded his head. Issei. Alright, I'll see you then. Aika smiled as she turned and began to walk off. Issei watched her leave as he went back to waiting for Yuma to arrive so they could start their date. Aika, on the other hand, once she walked away from Issei, she made sure that she put some distance between herself and the boy before she took out her phone. She went to her contacts, seeing that Issei's was definitely there as she clicked on THR1 underneath it and placed her phone to her ear. Phone. Hello. Aika smiled. Aika, hey Caddis. It's me. Caddis, phone. Aika. This is a surprise, you need something. Aika. Yeah. She then smirked. Aika. You and Murayama doing anything next Friday? Time skip. The sun was slowly setting over the horizon as Issei was walking up to the fountain. By his side was none other than Yuma Amano, who was wearing a beautiful pink outfit with brown shoes. Yuma smiled as she looked at Issei. Yuma. This has been a wonderful date, right Issei? Issei nodded his head with a gentle smile. Issei. Yeah, it's been really fun. He wasn't as enthusiastic as Yuma was. Reason for this is because THR moment she had arrived so they could begin their date. Issei has been getting a very deadly vibe from her. He didn't need Drake to let him know, since Issei was now able to sense supernatural beings due to his training with Vergil and Dante. So he instantly knew that Yuma was actually a fallen angel in disguised, a pretty good one at that, because if Issei was still a regular human then he doubts he would be able to figure that out, even with Drake's assistance. Although this pained Issei, since he thought Yuma was just a regular girl who had feelings for him, in actuality, all of it is nothing but lies meant to draw him into a false sense of security. Yuma, hey Issei. You okay? Issei. Oh, yeah. Just thinking of where to take you on our next date. Yuma smiled as they arrived at the fountain. The black-haired girl then ran to the fountain and faced Issei. Yuma. Hey Issei, can I ask you something? Drake. Here it comes, partner. Get ready to throw down. Issei. I know. The boy smiled at Yuma as he decided top K along and act stupid. Issei. Oh, of course. What is it? Yuma. Would you die for me? Hearing this made Issei blink in quote-unquote confusion as he wondered if he had heard that correctly. Issei. I'm not sure if I heard that correctly. What did you say? Yuma smiled as she walked up to Issei. She then grew an evil grin as she whispered something in his ear. Yuma. I want you to die for me. With that, she backed away as Issei's eyes widened, but before he could say anything a bright light engulfed Yuma. Issei covered his eyes due to how bright the light was. When it began to die down, Issei looked and saw Yuma, but she was completely different. She grew taller, taking on a more mature appearance, and her eyes changed, taking on a darker, more evil look. Her clothing also changed as well, now consisting of black strap-like objects around and under her breasts, a thong-like piece held around her hips by 3 thin straps, gloves that ran right up her arms with small lengths of chains hanging from them, shoulder guard-like objects on her shoulders with 3 large spikes sprouting from her right shoulder, and black thigh-high heel boots. Issei had to admit, Yuma did look rather good, even though she was giving him a malicious grin. The only thing he was truly wondering is why the hell is she wearing some bondage gear? Like, is she into that stuff or something? Yuma, well, I have to admit. I did have some fun today, despite how naive and childish you are. Things could have been much, much worse. She then looked at an object on her left wrist. It was a gift that Issei gave her on their date. He gave her it to show how much he was enjoying the date. Yuma, thanks a lot for the gift too, very sweet of you. But even so. A bright red light started to appear from her hand as Issei saw a spear-like object take shape. Yuma, it's time for you to die. In an instant Yuma threw her spear at Issei. The brown-haired boy didn't move from his spot as he smirked. Issei. Royal Guard. Yuma, huh? Yuma watched as Issei had blocked her spear, causing it to shatter into light particles before vanishing. This shocked the fallen angel because she didn't expect Issei to be able to defend himself. This made her wonder if he actually knew all along. Did he know that she was a fallen? Yuma, you blocked it, how? No human should be able to. Issei chuckled. Issei. You're right, no human would be able to do that, but… A small smirk grew on his face as with one swift motion, Issei took out both ebony and ivory and aimed the 2 guns at Yuma. Issei. Looks like I hit the jackpot. Third-person POV. Issei. Looks like I hit the jackpot. Issei started this battle off by firing 4 bullets at Yuma, who surprisingly managed to dodge 3 of them by simply moving out of the way before she summoned another spear and used it to block the final bullet. Already Issei could tell that this should be a relatively easy battle, but he's gotta remember that Yuma most likely has more combat experience than him, so she could pull something out of nowhere when he least expects it. However, Issei wasn't worried because he knows that he'll be winning this fight. Now for some reason, when he said that he randomly felt like he was Satoru Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen, he just hopes that he doesn't end up sharing the same fate as he did. Issei. You managed to survive the first 4 shots, gotta say I'm impressed. Yuma watched with narrow eyes as Issei smirked, going from left to right back and forth. As she watched the boy walk, she was mentally scolding herself for not thinking that Issei could have already known that she was a fallen angel or about the whole supernatural. But what confused her is that what Issei had just done, whatever he used to block her light spear, wasn't his sacred gear. Issei has a completely different sacred gear, more powerful than the last time she felt it, which confused her. Unless Issei somehow managed to suppress his sacred gear's energy, which should be impossible to her level knowledge, then it shouldn't have been awakened. She isn't entirely sure why, but it's as if all her instincts were screaming at him to stay away from this boy, warning her that he's dangerous. Yuma gritted her teeth a little. Yuma, I don't know how you managed to block my attack, but it doesn't matter. She summoned another spear of light, throwing it toward Issei as fast as a bullet. However, just like before, it shattered upon making contact with the brown-haired boy thanks to his Royal Guard style, which assisted him. Issei. Seriously? Is that all? Yuma growled. Why wasn't her light spears piercing the boy's body? The way he was standing, it looked like a blocking stance, but she can't recall there being one able to shatter a light spectre of a fallen angel. She wasn't weak either, sure she wasn't the most powerful in all of the fallen angels, but when it came to her small group she was. Yuma considers her level of strength equal to that of a mid-level devil, which was kin to average, but at least she was still a threat. But, due to the current situation in the supernatural world, she hasn't been able to rank up and reach a higher level. However, that won't be an issue later down the line, because she has something planned that not even her master knows about. Yet hopefully. Yet, despite all that her instincts were still telling her to be careful of Issei, who to her knowledge, is nothing more than a mere human who shouldn't be much of a threat to her. Yuma, you want more? Here. Spreading her wings, Yuma took to the sky as she summoned several light spears, which were much bigger than her previous ones. She grinned maliciously as she fired the spears toward Issei with a speed much greater than a bullet. Issei only narrowed his eyes slightly. Yuma watched satisfaction as the spears pierced the boy. It was impossible for most to dodge an attack like that, especially when they would have to focus on more than one spear. Yuma, this will teach you to not mess with me. No human messes with Rainer. Rainer laughed. There was no way that Issei could have survived that. Or so she believed, because as she descended toward the Gorand, her gaze locked onto where she had launched the spears. They soon widened in a mixture of shock and horror as she saw that boy was completely fine, without a single scratch on him. He had also slashed at the spears of light, causing them to shatter into several of particles. Rainer was shocked as she gazed upon the sword. It definitely wasn't a holy sword due to its demonic-like appearance, but she hasn't heard of the devils having a sword like it either. This left the fallen angel very perplexed by this event, and yet, even if he was hiding it, how was he able to react in time? The spears of light were literally less than 2 seconds away from piercing him. And there was also the fact that Rainer hadn't been able to see the brown-haired move at all, which meant that he brought the sword out faster than her eye. Rainer. What is this? Where the hell did he get this sword from? Issei. Hey. Rainer instantly got into a fighting stance, summoning 2 light spears, as Issei looked at her with a small smirk on his face. Issei. You said your name was actually Rainer, correct? Rainer? Yeah. So what if it is? Issei chuckled a little, resting his sword on his shoulder as he looked at Rainer with a small smile. Issei. Gotta say, that's a much cuter name than Yuma. Not expecting Issei's words, Rainer was taken aback as a light blush grew on her face. Rainer? What the hell do you mean? Issei raised an eyebrow. Issei. I said that your actual name is better than your fake one, what's so wrong with that? Rainer's face became redder. She couldn't believe what Issei had just said. Not only did he say that her name was cute, but he said that her actual one was better than the fake one she was using. No, she shouldn't fall for his trick. She knows what he is planning. He is only saying that so he can't kill her when she isn't paying attention. Rainer. You think I'm stupid? I know what you're planning. Issei. Oh yeah. And what do you think I'm planning? Rainer glared at the brown-haired boy. Rainer. You're only saying I'm cute so you can distract and kill me. Issei maintained silence, his gaze locked with Rainer's in a tense stare down. The air between them grew increasingly thin as the intensity of their confrontation escalated. Suddenly, breaking the silence, Issei released a small chuckle that gradually transformed into a robust and unrestrained laughter. Rainer found herself perplexed and enraged by Issei's reaction. What was the reason behind his laughter? Was he mocking her, underestimating her abilities, or finding amusement in her realization of his planned attack? The uncertainty surrounding Issei's laughter only added to her frustration. Rainer. Why are you laughing? Are you looking down upon me? Issei shook his head. Issei. No, I'm not looking down upon you. Rainer. Huh. You're not. Issei smirked at Rainer. Issei. Of course, everything I said has been nothing but the truth. Rainer was shocked as her small blush grew bigger and brighter. Rainer. Wait, you actually think I'm cute? Issei nodded his head. Issei. Yeah, I got no reason to lie. Greg. Plus, you're terrible at lying. Issei. Shut up you. Greg chuckled as Issei rolled his eyes, an action that went unnoticed by Rainer. However, Rainer was too busy having a mental breakdown over the fact that Issei had actually called her cute. This reaction seemed uncharacteristic for Rainer. After all, she had been called similar things before by her fellow comrades back at the Fallen Angel faction, but she had never responded to any of those compliments. So why did being called cute by Issei make her a blushing mess? It was a moment that caught Rainer off guard, and now she found herself having second thoughts about killing the boy. However, she couldn't let her emotions get in the way. She had a mission to follow, and killing Issei was necessary because he posed a significant threat to their plans. Despite being given a direct order, Rainer's hands began to tremble, her heart pounding rapidly against her chest. Her face turned an increasingly deeper shade of red, and steam even seemed to emanate from her head. Issei, ever observant, noticed Rainer's distress and walked over to the fallen angel. He snapped his fingers in front of her face, managing to snap her out of her overwhelming thoughts. Issei. Hey, snapping out of it. Rainer. Huh, wah. Issei. You look like you were having a mental breakdown. Rainer. Oh, I guess I was. Issei shook his head, a gentle smile playing on his lips, as he redirected his gaze towards the sky that was gradually darkening. The once vibrant blue canvas transformed into a mesmerizing display of colors. The deep orange hues began to merge with a subtle purplish undertone, creating a captivating gradient. As the sky further transformed, clusters of white spots emerged, twinkling like distant stars. Issei found himself a little entranced by the enchanting spectacle unfolding above him, his eyes filled with wonder and awe. Issei. Looks like it's getting dark, I should probably get going. He then turned to Rainer. Issei. But I guess that whoever sent you after me won't like the fact that you didn't kill me. Rainer. How did you? Issei. Know that you were sent after me because of my sacred gear. He crossed his arms. Issei. Let's just say that I have a friend who gave me a heads up. Greg. You're welcome. Issei silently chuckled. Rainer. Then you should know that I can't go back empty-handed. Issei. Yeah, I know. But you should know that if we are to continue this fight then one of us is gonna die and it's not gonna be me. Rainer, unfortunately, grunted in agreement with Issei. Well, the battle between the two hasn't been long. She can tell that he has been holding back against her. He wasn't taking the fight seriously at all. If she was like her comrade, Donaseek, then she wouldn't just said to hell with the damage this square will take. But unlike him, Rainer was smart and knew when a fight was a losing battle. Yes, she has her moments of arrogance, but many have similar moments to what she had done. Rainer sighed. Rainer. Yeah, I know. Issei. So, what are you gonna do about it? You gonna fight or are you gonna fly away? Issei received silence as an answer from her, but eventually her light spears vanished from her arms. Rainer. I won't fight you. Issei. Good, I didn't want to kill a pretty girl like you. Rainer blushed as she turned her back to the brown-haired boy. Rainer. Jay, just stay out of our way, I don't wanna have to change my mind. Issei chuckled. Issei. Whatever you say, Sundeer. Rainer punched Issei's shoulder. Rainer. I'm not at Sundeer. Issei rolled his eyes, smiling in amusement as Rainer blushed even more, but this time out of annoyance rather than embarrassment. Rainer. Just don't get yourself into trouble, I don't want to kill you. Issei. I'd like to see you try, Rere. With that, Rainer took her leave by spreading her wings and took to the night sky, leaving Issei the only one at the Kuoh Park fountain. Rebellion disappeared from his hands as Issei scratched the back of his head. Today has definitely been a very interesting one. Issei. Well, Drake. I just fought my first fallen angel. Greg. Indeed, though compared to the training you had to go through, this battle was a breeze. Issei chuckled. Issei. Yeah, you got a point there. He soon noticed that the sky was getting more and more darker, signaling that he needed to head back home before his mom starts to get worried. Issei. Well, Drake. Since it's getting later, wanna grab some pizza? Greg sighed. Greg. Seriously? You want more pizza? Issei. Hey. Pizza is amazing. Inside the sacred gear, Drake facepalmed his mouth. He blamed Dante for corrupting his partner's mind with his non-stop pizza and strawberry sundae shenanigans. It's no wonder he was so late on his ship's rent. How can one man spend over $2.5 million on pizza and sundaes? Greg. I'm blaming you for all this, Dante. Time skip. A new day dawned over the picturesque town of Kuoh, casting its golden rays upon the tranquil streets. It was just another day in the perpetual cycle of life for the residents, including Issei Hyoudou, who lay nestled in his bed, enjoying a peaceful slumber. Soft snores escaped his lips, filling the air with a gentle rhythm. As the morning light gradually illuminated the room, it revealed subtle changes that had taken place in Issei's domain. Though not immediately apparent, an observer would notice the absence of clutter that once marred the floor. Issei had taken the initiative to tidy up his abode, a small but significant step towards responsibility. A heap of soiled garments, once strewn carelessly, found their way to the bathroom, where Issei diligently loaded them into the waiting embrace of the washing machine. This newfound sense of order shocked Miki, Issei's mother, who had long yearned for her son to take charge of his belongings. But the most intriguing transformation occurred within the confines of Issei's closet. With meticulous precision, he had organized his collection of adult material, each item now resting in its designated corner, forming neat and separate piles. Issei pondered over their fate, uncertain of the best course of action. Should he consider selling them online, or perhaps share them with his like-minded friends? The answer eluded him for now, but he knew he would eventually find a suitable resolution. However, in the present moment, Issei remained blissfully unaware of the mounting responsibilities and decisions that awaited him. His peaceful slumber was abruptly interrupted by the shrill sound of his alarm clock, jolting him from his dreams and signaling the start of a new day. Alarm. Master, wake up, please. Master. Issei silenced the alarm clock, slowly sitting up in his bed as he rubbed his face in an attempt to fully wake himself up. Issei. Another day. Greg, hey partner. Issei. Yeah. Greg. You're naked. Issei blinked. Issei. What? He looked down at his covers, taking them off as what the Welsh dragon said was in fact true. Issei. What the fuck? Why the fuck was he naked? He didn't remember going to bed naked. Did he somehow strip his nulf while he slept? No, it couldn't be, that never happened before. Maybe he. Issei's thoughts were soon interrupted as he felt breathing coming from the side of his bed. He turned his head robotically and was faced with a hot red-haired woman lying next to him. He knew her. It was Ria's Gremory, one of the quote-unquote one he saw from his school. However, when he lifted the blanket he froze. She was naked. Issei. Well, I didn't expect this. That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next.